Fenrir is the name of an S-rank monster, wielding power so devastating it could single-handedly obliterate a massive city. And now, it's launching an assault on a peaceful village, filling the people with sheer terror. They've poured out all their savings to hire the adventure group known as Fire Dragon Fang to defeat Fenrir once and for all. Even though the hero Kotei is hiding nearby, he's the first one Fenrir targets. The other members quickly form their battle lines to face this fearsome beast. Bandana, the agile archer girl, swiftly fires a rope to bind Fenrir, halting its every move, but the monster flings Bandana against the wall, leaving her gravely wounded. Luckily, their team has the priestess Maleficus, who commands healing magic. She rushes to mend her teammates' injuries. Bandana presses on, restraining Fenrir and creating an opening for their leader Gondova's final strike. He unleashes his flaming sword in a decisive slash, roasting Fenrir to a crisp. After vanquishing Fenrir, Fire Dragon Fang is hailed as true heroes by the villagers. Only the hero Kotei is left unmentioned, fading into the shadows. In a group of such mighty warriors, Kotei is seen as utterly useless, fumbling through odd jobs on their world-saving quest. The villagers prepare a feast to honor the heroes, but Gondova complains that the food is dreadful. So, he orders Kote to whip up something more palatable. After all, today marks the last day they'll enjoy Kotei's cooking. Hearing this, Kotei jolts in confusion, unsure what they mean. It turns out, leader Gondova has decided to kick Kotei out of the group for being completely worthless. He's only good for menial tasks, unable to defeat even a lowly slime. Maleficus points out that adventure teams are limited to 4 members max. To strengthen the group, Kote must leave to make room for a high-level mage. Bandana sees Kotei as nothing but dead weight. In fact, Bandana views Kotei as nothing more than burdensome baggage they have to drag along. Feeling desperate, Kotei begs Gondova for one last chance to stay, but Gondova kicks him aside without a hint of mercy. From that moment, tales of Kotei's expulsion spread like wildfire. Everyone insists the useless one must leave the adventure party, leaving him to wander in despair with nowhere to turn. To survive, Kote heads to the city in search of new work. With just 3 coins in hand, he decides to visit the employment center called Hello Work. As soon as he steps in, the receptionist girl rushes over to greet him, startling the young man. Hearing Kote's aspirations, she starts the interview and checks his abilities right away. First, Kote introduces his background. He's 15 years old and hails from a remote village with few inhabitants. Kote also shares that he used to handle odd jobs for the Fire Dragon Fang group, but they just dismissed him. Sympathizing with Kotei, the receptionist sees it as a plus in his job application. Thrilled, Kotei thanks his former teammates for the boost. Now, he must undergo another ability test. You see, abilities are gifts bestowed by the gods upon every person. These abilities rank from the lowest G to the highest SSS, and the receptionist believes they'll uncover Kotei's hidden potential. Hearing this, Kotei feels a surge of hope. Normally, someone with low sword skills can't even cut steel, but those with high abilities slice through it effortlessly with the same blade. Who knows? This test might finally reveal Kotei's true powers. Yet, after the checks, Kotei's talents all rank at the very bottom, proving he has no knack for any combat skills. Devastated, Kote thinks he's doomed to starve. The receptionist, Keel, encourages him that manual jobs might suit him better, like becoming a blacksmith or an alchemist. But since Kotei desperately needs money, Keel will try to find him a job. First, Keel suggests Kotei try lifting those sandbags by the door. The moment Kote touches one, it feels like it's draining a bit of his magic energy. Despite straining with all his might, he can't lift it at all. Keel thinks Kote has some strength, not totally weak, so she figures construction work might be a good fit. Coincidentally, a border town under Duke Taikon is hiring for wall repairs, so Kotei excitedly asks Keel to prepare a recommendation letter. But upon arriving, the boss eyes Kote's small frame with suspicion. He's short on workers and can't be picky. So, he hands Kote cement to apply to the city wall. Kote wonders why they don't infuse magic into the cement first. The boss just instructs him to use half a barrel and get it done. Pay will be based on performance, so if Kote slacks off, no pay. With that, the boss walks away, saying he'll check back in 3 hours. Knowing the boss looks down on him, Kotei resolves to give it his all. 3 hours later, the boss is stunned to see Kotei has finished a vast section of the wall. In fact, he's used up all the cement, not just half. The boss can't believe someone repaired a third of the wall in 3 hours. What's more, Kotei had no scaffolds or tools to help. Curious how he reached the high spots, Kotei explains he used a makeshift tool, piecing it together by tossing cement up and smoothing it out. The boss finds it unbelievable, yet the results speak for themselves. Kote mentions he could work here for a week, but the boss says today's tasks are done. So, he pays Kotei a bag of coins. with the rest going to his Hello Work bank account. Recalling the pay is based on performance, Kotei is amazed it's the largest sum he's ever earned. He vows to give his all starting tomorrow. However, after 3 days, Kote finishes painting the west and north walls, leaving the townsfolk in awe. The boss sadly tells Kote not to come back tomorrow, because the wall repairs were meant to provide jobs for the needy. Yet, Kotei's skills are at SSS level. If he stays, others will go hungry. With that, the boss pays him the rest and shoos him away for good. Holding his earnings, Kote feels a pang in his heart, baffled by yet another dismissal. Back at the guild, Kote shares his woes, admitting he's jobless again. Just then, a beautiful noble lady named Julia is arguing with the receptionist. Keel steps in and learns Julia is seeking a miner, but insists on paying based on results without advances. Keel advises her to find investors to develop the mine, but Julia warns that if no one works it soon, the mine will be seized within a week. Seeing this, Kotei steps up confidently, offering to take the job. He claims he's experienced in mining from his village. Julia hesitates, needing someone strong, not someone as slight as Kote, but Keel notes hiring such a worker would cost 10 silver coins up front. With no other choice, Julia asks Kotei if he really has experience. Of course, Kote nods, as he's quite familiar with it, so she takes him straight to the mine to start work. The receptionists watch and agree that Kotei is such a kind-hearted boy. Not to mention, his slender build makes him utterly adorable. Keel muses that if he worked in a tavern, he'd be incredibly popular. Just then, she receives a report of Kotei's construction earnings. A check for 200 gold coins leaves Keel stunned, unable to believe he earned so much. She even trips over the sandbags, wondering what they're even for. Tools to measure magic energy in the body. More. A colleague explains these aren't sandbags, they're tools to measure magic energy in the body. The more magic energy, the heavier they become. Ordinary people can't activate them, only royal-level mages can. Hearing this, Keel tries lifting one and finds it's not that heavy. Recalling how Kotei struggled, she wonders who he really is with such immense magic energy. Meanwhile, Kotei is traveling with Julia to the mine-filled mountain. Night falls unexpectedly, so they'll camp out for the evening. Kote asks why there's only one tent. Julia casually replies it's big enough for them both to share. This makes Kote feel awkwardly shy, thinking she's joking. After all, he couldn't possibly share with someone as charming as Julia. It's the first time anyone's called Julia charming, making her blush. Kotei even says he's traveled the world and never seen anyone as beautiful as her. At that, Julia tells him to stop right there. She's been an adventurer since age 10, she can't be charming. From now on, Kote should avoid such flirty remarks. With that, she tosses him a steamed bun for dinner. Holding the bun, Kotei is deeply touched. Because he's always cooked for others but never tasted food made by someone else. Julia downplays it as just steamed food, nothing special. Still, Kotei's overjoyed, making her think he's quite peculiar. As he eats, Kotei reflects on his painful past. Though he always prepared meals for his adventure group, they never shared with him. Now, eating someone else's cooking feels incredibly delicious. That night, sharing the tent with Julia keeps Kote wide awake. Glancing over, he sees her sleeping soundly, unguarded and at peace. True to his honorable nature, Kotei steps outside, yielding the tent to Julia. In reality, she was testing if he's a scoundrel or not. Now she sees Kotei's both upright and endearing, secretly delighting her. She's already plotting more ways to tease him ahead. Julia drifts into a peaceful sleep. Come morning, she finds Kotei slept under a tree all night, and her torn jacket from yesterday is now neatly mended. Just then, Kotei wakes up and mentions he fixed her jacket last night. Stunned, Julia thinks this boy must be in the wrong line of work. Now, it's time for them to mine the demon stones, with Julia aiming for 10 gold coins before the week ends. But unsure of where to dig, she'll just start somewhere nearby. Kote advises that random digging won't yield ore. With his experience, he'll scout for the ore himself. Julia just needs to follow. Sure enough, Kote quickly locates crystal ore. A light hammer strike reveals the stones, leaving Julia in utter amazement. Inexperienced, she thinks it's ordinary gemstone, but Kote clarifies it's crystal, worth 3 gold coins per piece. Hearing this, Julia is even more astonished they've already hit a third of their goal. By the end of the day, Kote mines the entire area, hauling back a pile of crystals that defies belief. Julia assumes they can sell it right away. Kote warns the pieces are too small. Selling now won't fetch much, they need to turn them into magic crystals first. Julia knows only 10 mages in the kingdom can craft magic crystals. Yet, Kote does it in seconds, leaving Julia speechless once more. As she recalls, even mages take an hour for the smallest one. Kote acts surprised, marveling at how mages endure for a whole hour. With his limited magic, he couldn't possibly match that. Julia is at a loss for words, realizing how oblivious Kote can be. That afternoon, Julia heads to town to sell the magic crystals, while Kote stays behind for some personal tasks. She warns him not to overexert and promises to return in the morning. Before leaving, Kote flashes a warm smile goodbye, making her think he's just too cute. Soon after, Julia brings the crystals to a guild for sale, but the buyer asks for proper documentation. Julia knows they'll investigate the source, so she flashes her badge, astonishing him. It proves she's an adventurer serving the royalty directly. Afterward, she requests use of the teleport stone, as she needs to find better buyers in the capital instead. Truth is, Julia once served the royalty. Now, she's on her own path. If she revealed the truth about these crystals, no one would believe her. Upon arrival, Julia goes straight to the shop of a petite girl named Mimiko. Since they're old acquaintances, their conversation flows easily. Julia explains she's here to offer these crystals for Mimiko to buy. Mimiko inspects one and valuations it at just 10 silver coins. Julia figures Kote's craftsmanship must be lacking, so the low price makes sense. But upon closer examination, Mimiko decides to appraise it properly inside. When she returns, she offers 10 gold coins, leaving Julia utterly shocked. Mimiko shares that this crystal brims with 10 times the usual magic power, crafted with exquisite skill by the artisan to keep the inner magic safely contained. After hearing this, Julia sells all 50 crystals to Mimiko and pockets 500 gold coins. A bag of gold appears right before her, leaving Julia in utter disbelief at this incredible reality. Mimiko has 2 favors to ask of Julia. First, don't sell these crystals anywhere else but her shop, because the kingdom doesn't want such powerful crystals flooding the market unchecked. Second, Mimiko wants to know who created them, but Julia refuses to reveal Kot, not wanting to bring trouble his way. Hearing this, Mimiko feels utterly puzzled. Someone who can create something like this should be working directly for the kingdom. If Julia is hiding their identity, it must be for personal gain, she thinks. But Julia insists she's not sharing details without their permission. At that, Mimiko reveals she's a royal mage, holding a rank equal to a count. Using her authority, Mimiko orders Julia to reveal the truth. But Julia retorts that she's no longer serving the royalty, so she takes orders from no one. Her gaze is firm and unyielding, refusing to back down to Mimiko. In the end, Mimiko concedes, not wanting to argue with Julia any longer. She just advises Julia to keep that person from leaving the kingdom, because the kingdom is ready to offer them the title of head of the Royal Research Department, even a countship if the king approves. After the deal, Julia returns home, utterly speechless. Mimiko not only paid 500 gold coins but now wants to make Kot account it's an absurd dream come true. Later, Julia stops by Hello Work to ask about Kot. Coincidentally, Kizel is also eager to learn more about this young man, but guild rules forbid sharing client information, so Kizel can't tell Julia. Seeing this, Julia flashes her badge, forcing Kizel to spill everything about Kot. First, Kot has incredibly low stats but works with the Fire Dragon Fang group. Second, he was fired after just 3 days fixing the city walls. It turns out Kot worked so efficiently that he earned 200 gold coins, shocking Julia deeply. No wonder they had to let him go so quickly. With Kot's info in hand, Julia thanks Kizel and asks her to transfer 499 gold coins to Kot's account, leaving her stunned. Finally, Julia uses her royal adventurer authority to order Kizel to keep all of Kot's info completely secret. The next morning, Julia returns and gasps in amazement. The tent from yesterday has vanished, replaced by a charming wooden house. Just then, Kot arrives carrying firewood, saying he built the house while Julia was in town. She wonders if Kot could really construct a full house in just one night. Kot confidently replies that it's totally normal where he comes from. Hearing this, Julia falls silent, thinking it's anything but normal. Meanwhile, the Fire Dragon Fang team struggles fiercely against monsters. Gonniver is badly wounded and can't ignite his sword with fire. Furious, he turns to Malefice for healing, but her powers are useless too. Even the new recruit can't use any magic, driving Gonniver mad with rage. Witnessing the team's chaos, Bandana thinks silently that Fire Dragon Fang is truly falling apart. At the same time, Julia tells Kot about Mimiko appraising the magic crystals he made. Since they're so finely crafted, Mimiko wants to recruit Kot for the royalty. If he agrees to manage the magic research department, he'll be treated like nobility. Though the offer is tempting, Kot politely declines. Kot explains he's never taken a role above others before. Besides, he still hopes to return to Fire Dragon Fang. And the biggest reason is he's currently mining with Julia. Hearing this, Julia is deeply touched by Kot's trust in her. She shares that she just sold all the magic crystals and only took 1 gold coin as her fee. The rest went straight into Kot's account. Kot tells her to keep the money for herself, no need to worry about him. But Julia can't accept it. as it would make her feel terribly guilty, so she just wants Cot to focus on their mining work. Cot mentions he found a new spot last night, seeming like a rich vein. Julia is excited but worried for Cot, fearing he hasn't slept. Cot reassures her not to worry, as he's already slept 6 hours. This leaves Julia baffled, wondering when he even slept. She thinks he must have spent so much time building that wooden house. At least 5 hours chopping wood, 3 processing it, and 4 constructing, at least that's her guess. Yet Cot still got 6 hours of sleep. It's straight out of a fantasy tale. From Cot's side, he feels he slept more than enough. Back with Fire Dragon Fang, he only got 4 hours a day. As the errand boy, he always woke earliest and slept latest in the team. So Cot promises to work even harder to make up for the extra rest. Soon after, Cot leads Julia to the spot he mentioned. Based on the mountain's terrain, Cot is sure there's a valuable vein below. He sets this area aside for Julia to mine, warning her not to dig deeper than 50 meters. Meanwhile, Cot will head back to yesterday's site where he found the crystal. Touched by Cot's kindness, Julia agrees to split up so they can work efficiently. That afternoon, Julia shouts with joy after mining a rare topaz for the first time. Just as Cot said, this is a massive vein full of valuables, and a topaz this size could fetch 3 gold coins. She even considers asking Cot to turn it into a magic crystal for even more value. But she stops herself, not wanting to take advantage of such an innocent boy. Later, Julia checks on Cot to see what he's up to. She thinks with his style he must have dug an entire tunnel by now. Indeed, she sees a tunnel Cot has cleared. Inside, glowing moss lights the way, so no lamps are needed. Julia had predicted it, but this tunnel is unbelievably vast. At that moment, Cot brings out a pile of ores, saying he was about to find her. Seeing this, Julia asks how Cot's work is going. Cot shares a bit disappointedly that he only found a few worthless stones. At first, Julia sympathizes. She feels bad for Cot, thinking this time he failed, but the stones he's discarded look intriguing, so Julia asks what they are. Cot says it's mithril. Since he found so much, it's not valuable to him. In his village, they have mithril in abundance and just throw it away. Hearing this, Julia is stunned, as mithril is more precious than gold or platinum. Yet Cot casually tosses away such a rare metal. Surprised, Cot learns mithril is hard to find in the city. Back home, no one even uses it. Julia asks Cot what ore he's actually after. So Cot holds up a gleaming Orihan stone, leaving Julia speechless. This is the legendary ore, known as the metal of the gods. It's unbelievable that it exists right in this mountain. But Cot casually says, it's everywhere here. Just dig 7 kilometers down and you'll hit it. Hearing this, Julia is shocked that Cot dug 7 kilometers in just 8 hours and returned. He even filled in the tunnel to come back later. But that's just Cot, so nothing surprises her anymore. Plus, he dug a tunnel straight through the mountain. He wonders if he should fill that one in too. But Julia sees it so useful, no need to seal it. After finishing their mining, Cot and Julia head back to Samila City. The tunnel he dug now connects Samila to the Lord's town. Julia allows merchants to use it, as long as they pay for maintenance. She'll use that money to cover income taxes. Just then, her old teammate Bandana appears in the city and greets Cot. She then reveals that Fire Dragon Fang has faced a lot of turmoil since Cot left, and now, she's no longer part of the group. Before that, Gonova went to a tavern to drink after their failed mission. He called the food there trash and refused to pay. The owner called the guards, who caught Gonova and wouldn't let him escape. Actually, Bandana had arranged this spot for Gonova to enjoy a good meal, but he only reminisced about the smoked meat Cot made before. Since he'd already devoured that, he ordered Bandana to bring Cot back. If Cot resists, beat him into submission. Hearing this, Bandana pretends to agree and swipes Gonova's teleport stone, leaving him alone in the dark alley for the guards. Bandana thinks a scoundrel like Gonova deserves to be caught. Luckily, Maleficus was summoned by the church, so she didn't join him. Now, Fire Dragon Fang is disbanded, and their captain Gonova will rot in prison. For now, Bandana doesn't want to tell Cot everything, just says she was kicked out. Also, she doesn't want Cot involved with that group anymore. Hearing this, Cot looks a bit sad, as he wanted to return. Plus, he's grateful to Gonova and admires him, but Bandana knows he's just a perfect facade who exploits others. At that moment, she realizes Cot is heading to Hello Work, meaning he's job hunting. So, Bandana suggests she has a contact desperately short on workers at their workshop. This person is one of the 15 master craftsmen honored by the country. At first, Cot thinks he's unskilled and won't be much help. Bandana encourages him to be confident, as she's the one who recommended him. So Cot sincerely thanks Bandana and heads there right away. It's a workshop specializing in producing and selling potions and magic tools. The workshop is run by high-level masters with special authority in production and distribution. Remarkably, they stand equal to the top nobles in the kingdom. So Cot thinks this workshop must be an amazing place. But upon arriving, he sees it's just like a regular house. As Kot knocks, a beautiful elf girl named Men appears to greet him. At first, Kot is surprised that someone so young is a master craftsman, but she says she's just an assistant to the master. Kot introduces himself as Bandana's recommendation for the job. Hearing this, Men is delighted and leads Kot inside to see the workshop. As soon as he enters, Kot smells an overwhelming stench. Men asks Kot to clean the incredibly messy kitchen. She mentions it's been 3 weeks since she touched it. No wonder it smells so bad. Now Kot realizes he was called here for chores, not real crafting work. Just then, Men's master calls for her, so she leaves the tasks to Kot. So he puts on an apron and dives into the cleaning. After 30 minutes, the kitchen is spotless, without a speck of dirt. Kot wonders if there's more work, or if he should find Men. He needs to ask her to know. Recalling she went toward the front door earlier, Kot decides to look. Seeing a room at the end of the hall, he thinks Men might be inside. But opening the door, he finds a blonde girl changing clothes. Kot stands there mesmerized by her beauty, unsure how to speak, so he introduces himself as the new worker starting today. Luckily, the girl doesn't mind. She just says Lady Ophelia went down to the basement. At that moment, Kot notices a dark mark on her stomach, and she admits it's the curse she's suffering from. As an experienced hand, Kot wants to examine it closer. She agrees, so Kot gently touches the curse to check. He guesses the curse has eroded her body so much that she feels no pain anymore. Her organs are damaged, making eating difficult for sure. Indeed, her stomach growls, proving she hasn't eaten in a long time. That he'll make a light, so Kot offers to whip up a light meal just for her. Afterward, Kot realizes he's touched her a bit too long, so the young man prays for forgiveness for his unintended trespass. On the other side, Julia brings the ores to Mimiko for appraisal. And Julia is shocked to learn the ores Kot mined are worth 50,000 gold coins. It's an insane price that leaves them both in awe. Mimiko explains it contains the ultra-rare metals mithril and orihan. So, if rumors about Kot leak out, he will definitely face life-threatening danger. Mimiko wonders why a boy with monstrous powers like Kot lives in hiding like this. And Julia shares the story of how Kot was expelled from the Fire Dragon Fang team. Now, the team captain Gunova is being hunted across the entire country. Julia is also planning to help Kot become a master craftsman at the workshop. That way Kot won't attract attention from outside forces, and she will become his personal guardian to protect him. But the challenge is how to get Kot to agree to this, because Kot doesn't even realize his own abilities. Moreover, he undervalues himself far too much. At that moment, Kot is almost finished with the porridge made specially for the princess. Ophelia and Men enter the kitchen and freeze at the sight of Kot cooking. Seeing them, Kot quickly apologizes for using their kitchen without permission. He explains that he's making this porridge because the blonde girl from earlier was starving. Hearing this, Ophelia is surprised that Kot has already met the princess. So, she steps closer and warns him not to tell anyone about the princess. In front of the lady, Kot senses how serious this is and promises Ophelia he won't utter a word. Afterward, Ophelia pays Kot a generous amount and tells him to come back tomorrow to continue working. Receiving so much money, Kot feels a bit uneasy, but Ophelia insists it's well-deserved payment for him. So, he thanks her deeply and bids farewell. Ophelia, however, feels deeply worried that outsiders are contacting the princess while she's still under the curse. A moment later, Ophelia brings the food Kot prepared to the princess and warns her not to draw the curtains, as it could cause trouble if others see her. Ophelia also notices the princess's clothes are not properly arranged and fixes them for her. It turns out the princess isn't used to dressing herself, so she always needs help. Sister Ophelia notices the curse mark on the princess's stomach and feels sorrow for her, and right then, the princess's stomach growls from the aroma of the porridge. It growls from the aroma of the porridge. Ophelia realizes the princess hasn't eaten in a long time, but first, she must check if the porridge has been poisoned. The princess assures her that it's safe because Kot made it. Though it's their first meeting, the princess's intuition tells her Kot is a good person. And besides, her body has been ravaged by the curse for so long. Now, if it's poisoned, it hardly matters anymore. Ever since the princess was cursed, she's doubted everyone around her, but today, at least, she wants to trust Kot completely. Hearing this, Ophelia reluctantly agrees to let the princess enjoy it. Truly, the porridge's aroma is so tempting that no one could resist. She thinks Kot must have added many rare herbs to it. With the first bite, she feels it and says the porridge is delicious. At the same time, it warms her heart deeply. But before she can finish, the princess feels intense pain all over and collapses. Ophelia panics, realizing the food must have been poisoned by Kot. All because of her carelessness, that villain got his chance. So, she must rush to the room to find the antidote. However, the princess suddenly stands up, smiling, and says, "I'm cured now. Even the curse mark on my stomach has vanished without a trace." This leaves Ophelia in utter shock, unable to believe the princess recovered so quickly. On the other side, the villains sense that the princess's curse has disappeared, so they quickly plan to eliminate her as soon as possible. Ophelia immediately takes the princess to Mimiko's shop late at night, saying there's an urgent matter to discuss. And since Julicia is there, Mimiko introduces her right away. Ophelia also recognizes her as a former adventurer who worked for the royal family. Then, Ophelia introduces herself as a master craftsman, and the person with her is Princess Elle of the kingdom. Upon seeing the princess, the two girls kneel in respect, wondering why someone as powerful as her is in a place like this, not to mention she's suffering from a severe illness. Ophelia explains that the girl isn't sick at all. It's all because villains cast a curse on the princess's body. It's known that Elle is the only daughter of the king and a princess from the Eastern Empire. The princess's existence symbolizes peace between the two nations. Now that the war with the northern countries has just ended, someone is surely trying to ignite a new conflict and shatter the peace. Hearing this, Julicia and Mimiko both understand the gravity of the situation, and Mimiko steps forward to hug the princess, saying how lucky it is that she's safe. Perhaps today, the princess came here to ask Mimiko to identify who cast the curse. If that's the case, Mimiko will do everything she can to help, because her loyalty is fully dedicated to the king and the mother of Elle. Hearing that the curse is very powerful, Mimiko is surprised that someone broke it. So, Elle happily reveals it was all thanks to a boy named C. Hearing this, both Mimiko and Julicia are stunned, never imagining C could do something so extraordinary. At first, everyone knew it was an unbreakable curse. But after eating the porridge C made, the princess was completely healed. This leaves Julicia puzzled and headache-inducing. Meanwhile, Mimiko has narrowed down the suspect who cast the curse on the princess. It's a royal figure connected to the curse masters, and she's listed 3 highly suspicious people. First is the first general of the Royal Scouts, Sonova. Second is the bishop of the Poland Church, named Chiston. Third is the third queen of the king, named Isadora. Ophelia hears this and suspects Queen Isadora might be the culprit. The princess thinks it could be Bishop Chistan, but without evidence it's hard to point fingers, so Ophelia comes up with a plan to set a trap and make him reveal himself. She mentions that Princess Elle just turned 15, marking her coming of age. By tradition, in a year, the princess must leave the palace for training. So, Ophelia plans to build a fake crafting workshop and have Elle train there. That way, anyone following her will investigate the workshop's leader. And if they search, they're sure to expose themselves. Now, they need to find someone with an excellent record to lead that workshop. Hearing this, Julicia presents a top-grade magic crystal. And knowing C created it, Ophelia is shocked too. This proves C is the perfect person to lead the crafting workshop. This morning, C arrives for work, but sees a notice that the workshop is closed. At that moment, Men returns, so C hurriedly asks what happened. She explains that after C left yesterday, Master Ophelia suddenly left, so today C has no work here. Hearing this, C leaves in a daze, thinking he must have done something wrong and got fired. But now, he has no time to dwell on it because he's starving. So, C heads to the nearby restaurant for breakfast. There, C overhears a conversation from an adventurer party at the next table. They mention they're about to go on a mission, but their porter is sick and out for a week. The 2 brothers in the party, Can and Danzo, decide to decline the mission. Because without a porter, fighting monsters will be tough, and they could lose their lives. Above all, the group might not survive if they push on. But the girl Sina insists on taking the mission because the team desperately needs money. C listens and realizes they need a porter, so he boldly offers, saying he can handle the job. Though C is terrible at fighting, he can manage carrying everything. Sina sees him and looks down on C, thinking he's just a weak kid. But Can smacks Sina on the head, reminding her that she's about the same age as C. Can explains that being a porter for adventurers is no simple task, especially since they're hunting a 200-pound golem, so if C isn't skilled, he should leave. However, C says 200 pounds is nothing to him. In fact, he could lift both Can and Danzo at the same time. With that, C steps forward and hoists Danzo like a sack, leaving everyone speechless. Can mentions he's wearing armor, so his weight is about 150 pounds. But C effortlessly lifts both of them onto his shoulders, earning applause from the whole tavern. Finally, Danzo's party agrees to take C on for the mission. And on the way, each introduces themselves to C. Can is a great sword fighter, but his specialty is hand-to-hand combat. Danzo is an Eastern-style swordsman, known as a samurai. And he's also the leader of this party. The last one, Sina, proudly introduces herself as the party's archer. This party's name is Sakura, and they're honored to meet C. C is thrilled to have found a new job. Ken adds that the party also has another porter named BB, but he's down with a cold and needs a week to recover. As for C, he introduces himself as someone unskilled but humble, hoping for their guidance. Hearing this, the group laughs, saying C is being too modest. Through this chat, C sees that they're all good people, so he'll work hard not to hold anyone back. After walking for a while, the party reaches the Golem Cave, but before entering, C yells as he steps on a slim. Sina sees this, and reminds C to stab straight into its core to defeat it. The core to defeat it. But somehow, C keeps stabbing and can't pierce the slim. He even stabs his own thigh, leaving Sina speechless, so Sina has to step in and take down the slim for C. She admits that C is indeed terrible at fighting. Kan and Danzo encourage C not to worry, as they'll handle the fighting for him. C's job is to carry, so they'll protect him. Hearing this, C is surprised that no one in the group is angry with him. Back in the Fire Dragon Fang, C was always treated like rags. This touches C so deeply that tears well up, making Sina think the slim bit him and he's in pain. Right after, the group carefully enters the cave. Carefully. Because the place is so dark, Sina pours glowing moss into her palm and spreads it around the cave to light up the area for everyone. At that moment, Sina and C notice fresh goblin droppings. They look recent, so goblins might be lurking nearby. C hears this and gets excited and worried, but the group reassures him that a few won't be a problem, only a horde would make them run. On the way, C spots something strange on the wall. The other three spot a stray goblin ahead. Sina immediately throws a dagger at the goblin, giving Danzo the opening to strike it down. However, it manages to call its allies, so a pack of goblins is coming. Even their cries echo through the cave, showing they've blocked the entrance too. Danzo and Kan prepare themselves to fight, though they don't know if they can win. C tells the group he found a secret passage on the wall. Sure enough, with a gentle push, the wall reveals a new path. Kan signals for his sister Sina to follow C first to save themselves. Though saddened, Sina obeys and goes with C inside, sealing the wall behind them. C wonders why Sina did that when their teammates are still outside. But Sina shouts that the goblins are too many to escape, so they must find a way out while the others buy time. C says he could fight with them, but Sina points out that if C can't even beat a slim, he'd just get in the way. Hearing this, C realizes Sina wants to stay and fight even more than he does. From the other side, Kan calls out, telling C and Sina not to argue, and from now on he'll leave Sina in C's care. With that, Kan turns to Danzo and asks if he regrets staying to fight. Of course, Danzo has no regrets, as he'll die with honor as a true samurai. Kan has no regrets either, as he's protecting his sister to the end. Not to mention, he's sacrificing his life to ensure his comrades survive. Hearing this, C is moved because these are the first people to treat him as a true comrade. Yet now, C feels helpless, unable to save them, while Sina believes Danzo and Kan will survive. Their task now is to find a way out, but as Sina lights up the cave, she freezes in place, because in front of Sina are massive caged golems that make her collapse in fear. On this side, Jolly's group arrives at the inn where C is staying, and before meeting C, Jolly reminds Elle to keep her identity as a princess secret. On this side, Jolly's group arrives at the inn where C is staying, and before meeting C, Jolly reminds Elle to keep her identity as a princess secret. Of course, Elle played along obediently. Though this princess never knew how to hold her tongue, when they entered the room, they couldn't find C anywhere. Just then, Bandana's voice called from outside, revealing that C was heading to a cave in the northeast with Sakura's team. Jolly quickly stepped out to check, but she had vanished. Jolly didn't know who that person was or why they had taken C. She only knew that the northern area was holding monster extermination training. Surely the surviving goblins had escaped into that cave. She suspected that some villain had lured C there to harm him. So, Jolly told the princess to stay put. She herself would head to the cave. But Elle wanted to come along since she had learned magic for self-defense. In the end, Jolly agreed and warned the princess not to leave her side. Soon after, the two girls reached the northern cave where C was trapped. Inside, it was covered in glowing fungi, showing he had just entered. Even the princess spotted C's footprints leading ahead. But deeper in, the footprints vanished, so she switched to using an enhanced senses spell. This spell made the princess's nose as sharp as a dog's, helping her sniff out everywhere C had touched. As Jolly knew, you had to sniff the target closely to recognize the scent. Perhaps the princess had sniffed all over C's body, making Jolly a bit jealous. Right then, the princess told Jolly that a fight was happening inside. Indeed, weapons were clashing. When Jolly arrived, weapons were truly clashing. She drew her sword at once and told the princess to wait outside. Elle obeyed and used a physical enhancement spell on Jolly to boost her fighting strength. Inside, C and Danzo were still surrounded by a horde of goblins. Luckily, Jolly arrived in time, sweeping her sword to wipe them all out. Meanwhile, Sina was in despair, thinking she should have abandoned this mission earlier. If she had, the whole group would have stayed safe, so she apologized to C for dragging him into this. Sina knew these iron dragons existed to block intruders in the cave. Once lost here, no one escaped alive. Yet, C stayed calm and reassured her that everything would be okay. Then, he drew his sacred sword to deal with the golems in their path. Sina thought C was risking his life. Sure enough, as C approached, the monsters attacked at once. This startled Sina, but C cleverly leaped onto a golem's back and used his sword to sever its tail. Witnessing C destroy them so easily, Sina could hardly believe her eyes. He just needed a light touch to their necks, and their heads fell off. Every spot C attacked was their weak point. In no time, C turned the iron dragon golems into scrap metal. His moves were like those of a seasoned hunter, not just a simple laborer. In just minutes, C finished off all the monsters, leaving Sina in awe. She wondered who C really was to be so strong. Proudly, C told her he had been harvesting them for a long time. Right then, Jolly burst through the door, unsure of what was happening. Sina, still stunned, said C had taken down all of them alone with just his sacred sword. On top of that, C claimed he was there to harvest resources, not fight monsters. Seeing Jolly, C was overjoyed and asked for her help. Because outside, Can and Danzo were in danger, but Jolly assured him they were safe, so he didn't need to worry. Watching C, Jolly recalled the tale of a boy with no combat talent, yet his harvesting skills reached S rank, able to slay a dragon with just a sickle. She wondered if such a person truly existed. Lost in thought, the princess suddenly appeared, leaving Jolly speechless. After the group gathered, Can began to explain that the cave job came from a teammate, but he had no idea escaped goblins could be here, so his team was ambushed, and he felt ashamed. Luckily, Jolly arrived just in time to save them, and the team didn't know how to repay her. Jolly told them not to worry about it. She had something to discuss with everyone. Jolly shared that her group was starting a new crafting workshop, and she would lead it, so she wanted to hire C for his excellent performance at Ophelia's place. C said he was working with Sakura's team and wasn't free yet, but Can and Danzo urged him to accept and not think about them. It was such an appealing job offer. Jolly added that since the workshop was new, they needed a lot of workers, so she invited Sakura's entire team to join as well. Hearing this, they happily agreed and headed back to the city to celebrate. Only Sina felt a bit down, as she hadn't contributed anything today. C quickly gathered the spoils he had harvested, and Jolly reminded him to check his abilities once they returned to the city, because at the workshop he needed to know his true talents. C agreed right away and headed to Hello World for an ability assessment. This time, Mimiko herself would evaluate his powers. She shared that she had heard about C from Ophelia before. She had also seen the magic stones he made, so she came here to meet C and see just how strong his abilities were. That evening, C enjoyed a grand feast with the princess and Sakura's team. Though they had just met, they had become very close. Meanwhile, Jolly went to Mimiko to ask about the assessment results. Mimiko told her that she only told C his cleaning, cooking and harvesting skills were B rank, but in truth all of C's abilities had reached the legendary SSS rank. Even his magic power far exceeded hers. Jolly wasn't surprised, as C had given her so many shocks already. Now, he had the skills to lead her workshop, and they agreed to keep this secret. However, the receptionist Keel, standing nearby, had overheard C's secrets and was curious. So, the two threatened to silence her, making her shout that she heard nothing. The next morning, the group set off for the new workshop. This was C's first time on a high-speed carriage, and he felt thrilled. Jolly and Elle explained they used their privileges to arrange the trip, because their destination was a border town near demon territory. Teleportation stones couldn't be used there. Sakura's team would be the exclusive adventurers for this workshop. Before that, Jolly had reassessed Sakura's members' abilities, so she decided to send them on their way to work. That's why she decided to send them to work right away. But Sina grew suspicious, thinking Jolly was exploiting her brother and Danzo. Jolly hiring the whole group was probably for her own shady purposes, so Sina vowed to protect them this time. After half a day of travel, the group arrived, and C realized this was the town where he had once repaired the walls. Getting fired after 3 days still embarrassed him, but since he left, the work hadn't progressed at all. Later, Jolly led the group to what she called the new workshop. Everyone was speechless, as it was just a barren field with no workshop in sight. It turned out Jolly had arranged lodging for the group until the workshop was built, and C would handle the construction alone. Sakura's team was stunned, doubting one person could do it. Sina thought it was a crazy idea to leave him alone, but C insisted he could finish in 3 days. Then, he asked Jolly to prepare the necessary materials. Those were building supplies and special items like red gems, blue gems, and griffin feathers. Jolly promised to get all the materials as quickly as possible. Sina wondered what C planned to do with those things. Princess L was excited to see C complete the workshop. But since it was midday, Jolly wanted everyone to leave C alone. Now, they should head to the inn for food and rest. Before eating, Jolly wanted to gather Sakura's team for a private talk. Princess L, with nothing else to do, sat there to listen in. Sina thought Jolly would discuss the Golem Cave incident, since C had taken down all those iron dragons so easily. Hearing this, both Danzo and Kan were shocked, so Sina explained how C said he was used to harvesting golems and could handle them with just a knife. Now, Sina wanted Jolly to reveal who C really was, his background, and what L truly was. Jolly knew she had to clear up Sina's doubts, so she showed her badge and introduced herself as a royal adventurer. This shocked Sakura's team, as Jolly was such a famous figure. Princess L also stood up to introduce herself. She pulled out a dagger with the royal seal and revealed she was the 3rd princess of the kingdom. Hearing this, Kan couldn't hide his shock and stood up. The princess asked everyone to calm down so she could finish. Currently, she had to hide her identity for certain reasons, so they should just call her L as usual. Sina wondered if C was royalty, but Jolly said C wasn't royalty or nobility. Even Jolly, since knowing C, didn't know his true identity. She only knew his combat skills were the lowest, but all his other abilities reached the mythical SSS rank, something no one believed existed. Especially ordinary skills like harvesting, carrying, or building. However, C had no idea about his real abilities. Jolly also hid C's level and didn't tell him. Additionally, the master crafter position at the new workshop was for C. Sina was confused, wondering why Jolly had to hide it from him. Wouldn't it be easier to just tell him everything? But Jolly thought even if she told C, he wouldn't believe it. Moreover, if C's powers were exposed, he would definitely be targeted by villains. But Sina was furious, accusing Jolly of exploiting C's kindness, and she didn't want to hear more. Everything had gone beyond Sina's imagination, so she wanted her brother to leave right away. Only Danzo stayed calm and wanted Jolly to continue. This time, Princess L shared the story of how C lifted the curse on her with a bowl of porridge he made. There was an evil force trying to kill the princess, so Jolly came here to build the workshop and uncover the mastermind. Even though C saved the princess, when he learned she was cursed, he helped without asking for anything. Proving C was incredibly kind, always putting others first, so Jolly and the princess wanted to quietly protect him from the wicked. Then, L bowed and asked Sakura's team to keep C's strength a secret and become his protectors. After hearing this, the group thought for a while. Danzo said their group was just ordinary adventurers who didn't want to get involved with royalty, but since they had faced life and death with C, they would be his friends. Kan also agreed to protect C as a teammate, making the princess grateful for their loyalty. Only Sina hesitated, as she had only known C for a few days and understood little about him. Jolly said she understood Sina's feelings, because she herself had only known C for 6 days. 6 days. Hearing that, Sakura's team was astonished that their relationship was so simple, so Sina didn't agree yet and wanted to investigate the truth first. Right after, she went to the site to find C, because Sina thought C should know the truth about himself. Upon arriving, she was shocked to see C had already finished the foundation in less than a day. At that moment, C turned and said he had dug it all by himself. Because as a B-rank digger, it was no challenge. He even shared that back home, building a few dozen houses like this a day was normal. Hearing this, Sina was speechless, as C's story sounded anything but normal. She also asked C if he was upset about being given all this work. But C wasn't angry, saying no one forced him, and he actually enjoyed the job. C shared that before, his teammates called him useless, but now he was glad to prove he was useful. Hearing this, Sina realized Jolly's words were completely true. Indeed, because C was so pure, that's why she wanted to protect him. Now, Sina was happy to know the truth and agreed to be friends with C and the others. On the other side, Danzo asked Bandana to gather info on their teammate, Bibi, and Bandana revealed Bibi was a scoundrel who took jobs from villains. He had infiltrated many teams and caused them to fall apart. This time, Bibi was hired by another group to sabotage Danzo's Sakura team, weaving a web of betrayal in their midst. The details were all written down by Bandana on a piece of paper, which he handed to Danzo to read with a knowing glance. Once Danzo had the information, he paid Bandana as a token of gratitude, sealing their uneasy alliance. That evening, Bibi casually went out drinking and flirted with the young waitress at the tavern, unaware of the shadows closing in. He also heard that the Sakura group was still alive and thriving, not yet fallen to defeat. Now, with them working for the third princess, Bibi plotted to wipe them all out for a massive reward, driven by greed and ambition. However, Bibi's words were overheard by Danzo, every sinister detail caught in the air. Startled, he spun around and saw Danzo had been sitting there all along, sending Bibi into a panic as he fled the tavern to save his skin. Bibi couldn't fathom how Danzo uncovered all his secrets, and as he ran he tripped over a wire, crashing face first into the ground. Danzo approached and revealed he had suspected for a long time. Clearly, Bibi knew about the goblins in the cave but never warned Danzo, a betrayal that cut deep. Now, Bibi begged for mercy, reminding Danzo of their past as teammates, and though Danzo spared his life, he drew his sword, warning that if Bibi neared his comrades again, his head would roll. With that, Danzo swiftly left the alley, his resolve unshakable. Meanwhile, Bandana hid nearby, ready to eliminate Bibi and eliminate future threats. But before she could act, Mimiko's subordinates appeared and took Bibi away to another place. At that moment, Bandana received a letter from her master, warning that Maleficus was in grave danger. Bandana didn't know what troubles the nun was facing, but she felt a pang of sympathy for her fate. Still, her master advised to leave Maleficus be, so Bandana set that aside and headed straight back to Kot's homeland. The next morning, everyone was stunned to see that Kot's project was fully complete. Just 3 days ago, it was nothing but a barren wasteland. A barren wasteland with nothing at all. Yet today, a magnificent mansion stood there, and Kot had even planted fruit trees all around, turning it into a vibrant haven. The princess was overjoyed, seeing it as their shared home with Kot, but July pointed out that this was just a workshop. If they wanted to get cozy, they should take it elsewhere. At that moment, Kot appeared and invited everyone inside for a tour. The mansion had a grand entrance, 2 vast underground levels, and Kot had created a water supply system for the entire estate. Kot explained that he turned July's blue gems into an eternal engine that generates water endlessly. The red gems became lights that shine for years without fading. Everyone listened to Kot with wide-eyed confusion, lost in his inventive world. Kot was even thoughtful enough to make individual bedrooms for each person, using griffon feathers for soft blankets and pillows. Then, Kot asked July when the master craftsman would arrive, as he had prepared a workspace just for them. But July fibbed that the master was busy and would take time, then casually asked where Kot's own room was. Kot innocently replied, "You're just the errand boy, so you'll sleep in the kitchen." The group was speechless at his pure heart and urged him to take the master's room instead. It took them over 2 hours of convincing to finally get Kot to agree. Before moving in, July wanted to know if Kot could create a barrier against curses around the mansion. Kot said it might be tricky with his skills, so that night, July placed Mimiko's anti-curse talismans all over the estate herself. Even the Princess Elle's room was protected with one. But as soon as she finished, Elle suddenly opened her door, thinking Kot had come to visit. July stammered, explaining that such fantasies weren't real. Seeing July's flustered state, the princess assumed she was jealous. Hearing that, July grew even more embarrassed, insisting she wasn't the jealous type. After all, Kot was still inexperienced, so July advised the princess to be mindful and proper. Yet, the next morning, the princess wore an apron and headed to the kitchen to cook with Kot. July rushed in, questioning why the princess was wearing something so revealing. Even Kot felt embarrassed, as the princess was indeed quite bold. But in truth, she was fully dressed under the apron, not exposing anything. Just then, Sina walked in and caught the three in what looked like a secretive moment. She said she followed the scent of baking bread, and Kot quickly returned to preparing breakfast for everyone. He asked the group if they preferred tea or coffee in the morning. Seeing how capable Kot was, July playfully thought about marrying him on the spot. Kot prepared a breakfast that was absolutely delightful, earning praises from all. They couldn't believe they'd get to enjoy such meals every morning from now on. But July wondered why Kot wasn't joining them to eat. The princess explained that Kot had grabbed a cloth to clean the mansion because someone had graffitied the walls. Hearing this, July panicked and rushed to find Kot, as those were Mimiko's anti-curse marks. Mimiko had said the marks couldn't be erased once placed. Yet, when she arrived, Kot had wiped them all away without a trace. July was so impressed she nearly bowed to Kot, after spending the whole night on them. Casually, Kot asked July if she knew who had graffitied the walls. So, July made up a story about a mischievous ghost trying to catch Elle's attention. Luckily, Kot was so trusting that he believed it without a doubt. Only Elle worried about how to protect the princess from the assassins lurking nearby. The talismans were all placed, but Mimiko wouldn't arrive for a few more days. Until then, July had to devise another way to keep Elle safe. On the other side, Maleficus had. On the other side, Maleficus had been expelled from the church by the bishop. The reason was her repeated involvement with the Fire Dragonfang group, causing violence and chaos. Worse, their leader was now a wanted criminal. Maleficus quickly explained that she accidentally used lightning magic to attack a restaurant in the capital, because the food there was worse than slop for pigs. But the bishop didn't care about her excuses. He wanted her to atone by accepting a simple task for the church. If she succeeded, she would become a revered priestess. Maleficus was furious, having built the church's reputation through her deeds everywhere. Yet now, they treated her with such ingratitude. The bishop poured a full glass of wine and offered it to her. He assured her it was fine imperial wine, nothing to worry about. Without suspicion, Maleficus downed the glass in one go and agreed to any task he demanded. The bishop grinned wickedly and handed her the mission. The task, assassinate Princess Maleficus, was stunned, her body suddenly drained of strength. It turned out the wine contained a powerful curse. Now, she could only drink water and eat nothing. If she didn't eat within a month, Maleficus would surely starve to death. Only by completing the task could she break the curse. With no other choice, she had to follow the orders given to her. Now, Maleficus's fate rested in the Demon King's hands, leaving her with little time left. Meanwhile, Kot and his friends enjoyed a peaceful life together. July realized that even though Kot had erased the curse barrier, Elle was still safe, meaning the enemies hadn't dared to strike yet. Now, Mimiko had returned to town and was scouting everywhere. If the assassins made a move, they would be discovered for sure. July wondered if Kot's cooking had lifted the curse somehow. Every dish was so delicious that she and the princess craved it all day without tiring. Kot also assured that the princess didn't need to worry about curses anymore. July asked Kot how he was so certain. Kot revealed that the mansion itself was a barrier that could repel curses, because he had modified some materials during construction. On the other side, the priests had long prepared a supreme curse to end the princess. They laughed triumphantly, believing the princess was doomed this time. As they cast the curse, Ophelia detected their location immediately. However, the curse rebounded, making the priest's body glow brightly. Kot explained that while the glow didn't harm them, it would leave a deep psychological scar, deterring them from evil acts forever. Hearing this, July excused herself to inform her comrades about the news. Kot wanted to invite the princess to go shopping in town for some fun. Since her arrival, she hadn't left the mansion once. However, the princess hesitated, fearing something Kot didn't yet understand. Indeed, the town was far from safe. The guards spotted a thick fog enveloping the town, sensing an impending monster attack. They felt a chill, knowing danger was on the horizon. Because this town was crucial to the kingdom, spies had infiltrated it multiple times. But recently the walls were reinforced, bringing some relief. On July's side, they located the one who cast the curse. He was killed by his own allies after his body suddenly glowed. Indeed, Kot's curse-repelling barrier was incredibly powerful, so Ophelia believed that with Kot's help the enemies would be wiped out soon. But July disagreed, as it would put Kot in grave danger. Just then, the town's alarm bells rang, surprising the three women. It turned out a horde of monsters was marching toward the town. The army fired signal flares and spotted a skeleton army heading straight for them. Their numbers reached thousands, filling everyone with dread. Mimiko received word from her subordinates that the enemies were launching an attack, so July knew they were targeting the princess. Skeletons could only attack head-on, so General Orus decided to evacuate the civilians and hold the line here. The skeletons could only attack head-on, so he vowed to sweep them away with all his might. He ordered his subordinate Generic to quickly rally the forces and protect the people. On Mimiko's side, she suddenly got news about the battle. Strangely, the skeletons vanished upon reaching the walls, leaving everyone baffled. It was a mysterious phenomenon that puzzled all who witnessed it. July suddenly recalled what Kellel had said before. It turned out Kot was the only one who had repaired the north and west walls himself. Arat saw this and didn't know how to explain it to his subordinates. He had assigned the wall repairs to Kot, so only he would know the truth. Meanwhile, a high-level demon informed Maleficus that the first attack had failed. It had drained her magic to summon the skeleton army against the town, and before that the bishop had made a pact with this demon just to take the princess's life. As for Maleficus, the demon took her to ancient ruins to produce more monsters. Her magic was too weak for its needs, so the demon decided to use her soul to summon more creatures for the next assault. Now, Maleficus realized too late that the church had used her. She would have to sacrifice her life for their dark purposes. At the mansion, Kot heard July's account of the battle. The town was surrounded by monsters from the west ruins, and the knights were planning carefully for the inevitable assault. They said the skeletons were purified instantly upon touching the walls. Hearing this, Kot remembered that such purifications happened often in his village, nothing unusual. July sighed with relief, realizing Kot was always contributing without even knowing it. But if the monsters targeted the unprotected walls, the town wouldn't hold. So, July decided to head out and clear the western ruins. Kot wanted to join her for the adventure. But July told him to stay and watch over Lydie, and keep an eye on that mischievous graffiti ghost. Trusting her words completely, Kot agreed to remain with the princess. The princess was thrilled, like it was the festival of spring, to have Kot stay with her. Then, July went to the storeroom and took a pile of magic stones that Kot had used for the walls. Meanwhile, the monsters began swarming the east and south gates of the town. Since they moved slowly during the day, they would launch a full attack tonight. Awa was discussing strategies when July's group arrived. She introduced a royal mage named Mimiko, and the other was the workshop master Ophelia, with the princess safely at the workshop mansion. Oris was worried and wanted to send soldiers to guard the princess, but Mimiko said it was already handled, so he should focus elsewhere. The priority now was dealing with the monsters outside. July got straight to the point, asking Oris and his army to act as bait. This would give her group a chance to advance to the west and destroy the ruins. Oris was confused about how July would fight, so Ophelia showed him the magic stone, calling it a powerful weapon. Though Oris didn't fully understand its power, he agreed to July's plan. On one condition, he wanted to join them in destroying the ruins. Everyone was surprised that Oris was willing to risk the ruins himself. Hearing this, they all exchanged astonished looks, amazed at his bravery. Yet, he swiftly assigned to his deputy Generic the task of commanding the army as bait, while asking Mimiko and Ophelia to stay and support them, and he with July would charge straight into the ruins. Though Generic pleaded desperately against it due to the extreme danger, Oris remained resolute and initiated the campaign, ordering the soldiers into battle positions. Oris could clearly see that Generic was far from pleased. He understood that his leader was stubborn, so he didn't bother protesting further, and simply poured the finest wine into 2 cups, offering one to Oris. Normally, they would drain their cups and smash them as a farewell before a deadly fight. But this time he poured the wine away, declaring it wasn't a parting feast. They would triumph and return to savor the best wines together. Meanwhile, Cute was stuck doing mundane chores at the estate, feeling utterly bored. He suddenly recalled an old blacksmith from his hometown who was passionate about forging, and how Danzo had a remarkably sharp sword. So, Cute decided to try forging a similar sword, but smaller in size. He remembered being fired before for contributing nothing to the team, so now he wanted to make a real difference and help his current friends in battle. Right now, skeletal monsters and undead hordes were swarming the southern gate. July quickly pulled out the magic crystal and warned everyone to shield their eyes. With that, she hurled the stone at the monsters, unleashing a blinding flash of light. In mere seconds, they all vanished in a puff, leaving Oris in utter astonishment. He couldn't believe the workshop had crafted such an overpowering weapon. Just one crystal and the gate was completely clear, not a monster in sight. So, everyone seized the moment to launch the campaign. Generic would command the troops to draw out the monsters, while July and Oris advanced straight to the western ruins. A while later, Cute finished forging the short sword like Danzo's, but he figured his skills were lacking, so it was probably a failure. Just then, the princess opened the door and announced it was time for dinner. Seeing Cute had just completed the sword, the princess curiously came over to look. Cute explained that drawing the sword and raising it overhead would activate its magic, so he warned her to be careful, and if she liked it, he'd give it to her. Hearing this, Liz was overjoyed, as it was the first gift from Cute, but Cute thought she was just forcing a smile. He asked if the princess was truly being hunted. At that, Liz felt a pang of sadness, confirming Cute's suspicion. She admitted that because of her, Cute and July were facing immense dangers. And right now, July and her comrades were risking their lives in the western ruins. Hearing this, Cute remembered July, mentioning she'd go there to clear out monsters. Ruins were often perfect spots for rowdy kids who loved to vandalize. Even Gonova, the group leader, used to graffiti ruins he passed, making Maleficent so angry she'd zap him on the spot. So, Cute innocently thought July was just going to sweep away those pesky vandals. Sadly, he didn't know about the fierce battle, so he couldn't join her, wishing he had more power to protect those dearest to him. Hearing this, Liz beamed, believing she was the most important to Cute. But actually, Cute meant everyone in the group, leaving Liz utterly deflated. At that moment, both Cute and Liz couldn't stand waiting at home any longer. Liz herself wanted to uncover who was hunting her, so Cute decided to invite her to head to the western ruins and fight alongside everyone. However, July and Oris were now surrounded by an undead army, and she suddenly had a bad premonition that the princess was in grave danger. Meanwhile, Liz was excitedly preparing her outfit to join Cute on the journey. Earlier, Cute had said that drawing the sword and raising it would activate magic, so she eagerly pulled it out to see what it would do. Strangely, she waved it a few times with nothing happening, but moments later a shadow appeared behind her, startling her. At the same time, July and Oris were struggling to clear a path through the undead horde. Oris assured her that with a little more effort, they'd reach the ruins. But the enemies were overwhelming, blocking their advance. Luckily, Generic's diversion team had lured most of the monsters away. Still, both Generic and July were nearly out of magic crystals. Right then, a monster struck Oris, wounding him badly. July turned to help, but she was suddenly overwhelmed and restrained by the monsters. In that critical moment, Cute arrived just in time to save July, and it turned out the Sakura team had been sent to assist everyone. Thanks to them, July and Oris were rescued from the monster siege. Sina quickly spotted the ruins where the monsters were emerging. Since the building had collapsed, they must be hiding underground. July saw this and threw a magic crystal to wipe out the surrounding monsters. Everyone had to admit that Cute's creations were truly top-notch. July also handed Oris a healing potion made by Cute. It looked like a miraculous elixir, but it was just a jar of soup. Yet, one sip and his wounds healed completely, leaving Oris speechless. With monsters pouring from the ruins, Cute's team decided to hold them off, giving July a clear path inside. July relied on her comrades and urged Oris to move quickly. Stepping inside, July scanned around to see where the monsters were coming from, but they kept lunging from the shadows, origins unknown. Meanwhile, Maleficent was having her powers drained by the Demon King to summon monsters. If this continued, she feared she wouldn't survive. However, as the Demon King watched the battle outside, he noticed something odd. Just one stone dropping wiped out his entire monster squad. Even Maleficent couldn't fathom how that crystal held such immense power. With July and Oris closing in on the ruin's center, the Demon King decided to step out and toy with them for a bit. After a frantic run, July found the portal where the monsters spawned and immediately threw a magic crystal to destroy it, stopping any more from emerging. Right then, the Demon King appeared from the basement, greeting them, and both realized he was the final boss to defeat. July charged at the Demon King and tossed a glowing magic crystal. But once the light faded, the Demon King was unharmed. It turned out he was an immortal demon with endless life. Even when Oris struck a fatal blow, he didn't bother dodging. All wounds healed instantly, leaving July desperate and clueless on how to end him. The Demon King kept siphoning magic from Maleficent to maintain his spells, wishing she had strength left to break his magic circle. The Demon King remarked that he'd been watching July's group fight and had to admit humans were putting up a fierce resistance. Everyone was risking their lives to protect the princess, which impressed him greatly. Oris declared that frontline knights would never bow to demons. Hearing this, the Demon King felt a bit rude for not bringing his full forces. With that, he reopened the portal and summoned even more monsters. Among them were two powerful ones, heading straight for the town, and first, he'd order them to crush the Sakura team guarding the entrance. July and Oris charged at the Demon King and severed his head. But he quickly picked up his head and reattached it, vowing to wipe out the soldiers and drag the princess to the gate, forcing July and Oris to watch her demise. Hearing this, July felt utterly helpless and panicked, so Oris calmed her, urging focus on the fight to find a way to defeat the demon. Even though they'd severed his head, or July saw that Cute's crystal had no effect, and even severing his head or piercing his heart, he just kept reviving. So, July trembled in fear, losing all courage to fight. Seeing July's despair, the Demon King laughed even louder. He advised her to give up and accept her fate. Inside, Maleficent thought it was all over and she was starving, too weak to even run. She just hoped to eat some dishes Cute had cooked before. Suddenly, Cute's voice echoed, making Maleficent think it was a hallucination. But it turned out Cute had boldly dug a tunnel and snuck in. Spotting Maleficent, he asked why she was lying there, and she realized Cute was really there, not a dream. He'd even brought the third princess, Liz, so Maleficent assumed Cute had figured out she was behind the princess's assassination plot. It seemed Cute had brought the princess to convince her. Cute introduced Maleficent to Liz as his former comrade. From Cute, so he owed her greatly. Maleficent was once Cute's teammate, so he owed her greatly. But Maleficent revealed she'd been expelled from the church and was no longer a priestess. It was all because Bishop Tristan had framed her, landing her in this mess. But Cute, being carefree, thought Maleficent was the one drawing traps everywhere to harm the princess. The magic circle in the ruins was also from. Even the magic circle in the ruins was her graffiti work. Gonnevar used to be the graffiti artist, and now she was copying him. This disappointed Cute deeply. He never expected Maleficent to fall so low. Hearing this, Maleficent was completely baffled by what Cute meant. She quickly told Cute that his comrades were fighting above. Hearing that, the princess decided to go up and help July, asking Cute to stay and erase Maleficent's graffiti. At first, Cute refused, worried about the princess's safety, but she assured him the sword he made would protect her. This surprised Maleficent, as the Demon King was hunting the princess. Yet, Cute let her go alone like that. Even more, Cute grabbed a mop and said he'd clean everything to free Maleficent. Maleficent thought Cute was crazy, as that couldn't erase a magic circle, but Cute proved to be a master. A few wipes and the circle was destroyed. On this side, July and Oris coordinated to defeat the Demon King, but now he was dodging actively, no longer underestimating them. With the magic circle destroyed, the Demon King couldn't regenerate temporarily. July seized the chance and pulled out another magic stone for the next strike, but he unleashed dark energy, knocking the stone to the ground, and now he wasn't playing, he'd end them both. Just then, the princess emerged from below, greeting July, leaving everyone stunned that she'd ventured so far. The Demon King couldn't believe his prey had come to deliver herself, so he fired dark energy at her, striking her down. July called out to the princess in vain, thinking she was gone. The Demon King laughed wildly, calling her the stupidest prey he'd ever seen. But moments later, the princess reappeared. It was just an illusion clone of hers. All thanks to the illusion sword Cute had crafted. Back at home, Liz had tested it to create a clone of herself, and she affirmed no one could escape this magic sword. The Demon King didn't believe it and fired dark energy at the princess, but it only hit her clone. Liz had moved closer to the magic stone, terrifying the Demon King. He begged her not to, but it was too late. Shattering the stone made the Demon King vanish in a desperate scream. Cute, who was mopping, heard some rowdy kids yell. Maleficent realized the Demon King was truly defeated, so the monsters he'd summoned vanished too. Everyone sighed in relief, as the campaign had finally succeeded. Now, July questioned the princess on why she risked coming here. Earlier, July thought the Demon King had killed her, filling her with terror. Liz explained she couldn't stay idle while everyone fought, so she apologized for worrying them. But July said the princess didn't need to apologize as she'd saved them all. Oris knelt and thanked the princess for her timely rescue. Without her, both he and July would have been lost. Liz understood the battle was brutal against such a powerful foe, so she thanked them for protecting her and the town. Oris requested a favor from the princess. Tonight he wanted to share wine and celebrate the victory with his comrades. Though the magic circle was broken, Maleficent's curse remained, so she hesitated to eat, her stomach growling. Cute offered Maleficent some rice balls and invited her to eat. At first, Maleficent thought she'd just throw it up, but since it was from Cute, she couldn't refuse. Indeed, the rice was as delicious as when Cute was in the group. Even after eating, Maleficent's curse unexpectedly lifted, astonishing her. Now she understood this was Cute's true power. He'd quietly helped the team for years without anyone noticing. Yet, they belittled him and kicked him out like a stray dog, so Maleficent cried, apologizing to Cute for wrongly blaming him all along. Just then, July and the princess arrived with Mimico's subordinates. It turns out they came here to capture Maleficent, who's wanted across the lands, so she desperately pleaded with Cute to find a way to save her. But the young man only promised to bring plenty of delicious treats to visit Maleficent in prison, leaving her fuming with frustration. And Cute hoped Maleficent would reform well to soon rejoin the community. With everything finally settled, Julie felt a huge weight lift off her, amazed that Cute and the princess had come all this way to save her, so she joyfully linked arms with them to return to town together. Flanked by two beauties on his arms, Cute admitted he was utterly flustered. After all the adventures, Cute had gained so many new friends. At the same time, he now had a true home to return to, filling his heart with genuine happiness. That night, everyone threw a grand feast in town, but Cute couldn't figure out why they were all eating in complete silence. At first, Cute thought maybe his food had a problem, making the whole group suddenly mute, but Aureus explained that everyone was just too focused because the wine and snacks were incredibly delicious. And as soon as he finished, the soldiers all chimed in agreement. Cute still thought Aureus was just his old construction foreman, but Liz stepped in to introduce him as the general in charge of protecting the town. Hearing that, Cute thanked Aureus, saying the people here are so kind-hearted and the vegetables are delicious. It must be thanks to his brilliant leadership that the town remains so peaceful. Right then, the town lit up with a spectacular fireworks display prepared by Cute. Everyone who saw it couldn't help but praise how beautiful it was. Aureus and Generic suddenly realized their wounds had healed without them noticing. Cute cheekily boasted that he'd heard good food can make anyone heal up, leaving the group speechless at such an absurd claim. As absurd as that. Meanwhile, a mysterious girl was imprisoned in a magic circle in the capital, and Duke Taikon seemed to be plotting something shady. From a young age, Cute was a curious and energetic boy, always exploring everything around him. That's when he met the daughter of a traveling merchant named Hild. First, Cute asked Hilda what she was doing so intently. When she didn't reply, Cute went on to compliment her striking horns, even noting how beautiful the weather was, but Hilda ignored him completely. It wasn't until Cute started crying that Hilda finally spoke up. She said her father forbade her from talking to people in the village. He thought the villagers were strange and didn't want Hilda influenced by their odd ways. So, she had just been talking to herself all along. Cute, seeing that, pretended to talk to himself too, introducing his name to get acquainted with Hilda. From that moment, the two became close and chatted easily. They even dared each other to ride a golem into the forest to reach the 7-colored flower field. On the way, Hilda spotted some wild fruits that looked tempting, but as soon as she ate one, she was poisoned and collapsed. Cute rushed over and realized it was a highly toxic fruit, so he quickly went to find 7-colored flowers to make an antidote. But with Hilda's condition, she couldn't drink the medicine herself. So, Cute didn't hesitate to take the medicine and give it to her mouth to mouth. A while later, Cute woke up after Julie shook him awake. Though the dream was from 10 years ago, Cute felt like it had just happened. Ahead of him now was the village that had sent an invitation for his help. Julie went to ask the village elder and learned they were suffering from a severe water shortage. If it continued, all their crops would soon wither away. Julie noticed a neighboring village with a large lake and wondered why they didn't ask for some. The elder explained he'd tried, but they refused to negotiate, so he turned to the crafting guild for aid. Now, with guild members busy helping others, Julie decided to ride over to the neighboring village to negotiate. However, their lake was also running dry, leaving the people begging Julie for help. Just then, word came that something big was happening on the hilltop. Julie arrived to find a massive lake, yet people still complained of thirst. Cute explained to her that this lake had just appeared, and as always he showed up with a cheerful grin, saying the birds were thirsty, so he dug up an underground spring for them, creating this vast lake on the hill. The villagers thought Julie had created it, so they bowed to her like a savior, leaving her speechless on how to correct them. When they returned, the villagers gifted Cute with all sorts of presents. Among them were all kinds of eggs, so today Cute would make a feast of delicious dishes for everyone. From fried eggs to sweet pancakes, nothing was missing. But Cute suddenly remembered Liz was still nowhere to be seen. Julie said the princess was reporting to Duke Tychon about the recent monster incident. By now, the princess and Aureus had been invited to Tychon's estate, and he acted honored to welcome the third princess of the empire. But Liz cleverly replied that she was here as a representative of the crafting workshop, not as a princess. She knew Duke Tychon held great power in the country, but had shady ties with other nations, and his invitation to her was surely to pull her in and strengthen his influence. So Liz had prepared thoroughly to handle him. During the banquet, he asked about using magic stones to purify the undead. Liz knew he was fishing for information, so she dismissed it as just a rumor, because if he found out Cute made the magic stones, he'd force him to serve. However, Tychon mentioned that the border town still lacked an official name, and by tradition, the new governor would name it. He hadn't decided on a governor yet, and the town was in a dangerous spot near demon territory. So, he suggested appointing the master craftsman from the workshop, Cute, as governor. Hearing that, Liz was startled and nearly spat out her drink. His unexpected move caught her off guard, because if Cute became governor, he'd have to go public, so she quickly explained she couldn't decide that on her own. But he pointed out that wasn't she here representing the workshop. Besides, Cute had saved many soldiers in the monster battle, so no one would object to him as governor. Liz was at a loss for words after hearing that. All she could do was hope General Aureus would step in to help, but even he agreed to Cute as governor, leaving Liz speechless. Seizing the moment, Tychon pressed on, asking if Cute was worthy. Liz fired back that Cute is the greatest genius in the world. No one has the right to question his qualities. And with those words from the princess, Tychon burst into laughter. Now she couldn't refuse his proposal. Back home, Liz admitted to Julie that she'd been too careless with Tychon and couldn't back out. Julie suggested finding someone else to take Cute's place. But Liz knew that was impossible, as no one had Cute's expertise. She proudly declared that no one could replace Cute, because he's the most wonderful man in the world. Mentioning Cute, Liz suddenly realized he was missing. So, Julie told her Cute was busy raising a child. Shocked, Liz thought Cute had a child with someone else, but it was actually a fertilized egg of a water beast that was about to hatch. So, he was in the lab caring for the egg. Right then, Cute shouted that the egg had hatched, is struggling to finish the reports. Meanwhile, Mimiko is struggling to finish the reports to send to the royal family, to the point where her face mask has dried up and cracked. The report mentions the bishop dying in the church. Mimiko suspects he was assassinated by the mastermind to cover tracks, and the one who made the pact with the Demon King is someone in the church. Thinking of the bishop, Ophelia remembers Maleficent, Mimiko said Maleficent is still imprisoned, and Cute visits her occasionally. Another thing is Cute is about to become the town's governor, so Mimiko has to report that too. Just then, Mimiko received a message from Cute. It turned out the egg he received hatched into an adorable little girl. Seeing a human child hatch from an egg left Julie utterly baffled. Moreover, the child not only looked like a 3-year-old but could talk and called Cute Papa, astonishing everyone, but Julie insisted humans don't hatch from eggs. This child must be some kind of monster, so Cute needs to be careful for his safety. Hearing that, Cute was worried, because if Julie was right, the child could harm everyone, and she suggested taking the child to watch over her. If she became a threat, Julie wouldn't hesitate to act. Though Cute refused, Julie took the child from him anyway. So, Cute demanded the child back, saying he'd raise her properly. If anything happened, he'd take full responsibility. Right then, the child hugged Julie and called her Mama, touching her heart. Suddenly, Julie daydreamed about marrying Cute, with a home and children. But Liz appeared behind her, saying she wasn't the mother. With that, Liz took the child from Julie, and it called her Ma, delighting her. The child even called Sina Big Sister, so now no one wanted to harm it. Ken assured that his group would raise the child well, so Julie didn't need to worry about her turning bad. Cute thanked everyone's kindness, and Sina brought the child back to him, as he was her guardian after all. At that point, Julie had to agree to let everyone keep the child. So, they all discussed naming the child. After thinking for a while, no one came up with a good name. Liz suggested it was her child with Cute, so they should name it after both. But Julie immediately objected, since the child wasn't the princess's. Even Julie suggested a name combining her and Cute, but of course, he didn't agree. So, the two started arguing fiercely over who was more worthy to be Cute's wife. Their argument woke the child, making everyone feel guilty. Cute saw the child as the bond that connected everyone, and every time she smiled, it brought them closer, ending the squabbles. So, Cute decided to name her Akuri. This name symbolizes a link between 3 points, Julie and Liz. Because the child is what ties everyone together, everyone was pleased with the name. Akuri was overjoyed in everyone's arms. Everyone. Because now she has become an important member of the family. That night, while Julie and Akuri slept soundly, one of Mimiko's subordinates appeared. It turned out Julie had carefully collected a sample of Akuri's hair and saliva to send to Mimiko for research, and Julie hoped the group would uncover the child's true origins. The next morning, Cute designed a special room for Akuri to play in. Actually, Julie asked him to build it based on her design. The room's materials were sturdy, making it look a bit like a prison. But Julie believed it was the best way to protect everyone and limit contact with Akuri, because she's waiting for Mimiko's results on what species Akuri really is, and childcare will be handled by Shana. At that moment, Akuri ran over, wondering why Cute and Julie weren't playing with her, so Cute explained he had to go out for work and hoped she'd listen and not cause trouble at home. On the way, Cute was so distracted thinking about Akuri that he couldn't focus, so Julie reminded him to finish work quickly to come back and play with their daughter. Just then, Julie heard a strange noise inside the carriage. Cute heard the odd sound too, so they stopped to check, and when Cute opened the door, he was shocked to find Akuri inside. She jumped to hug him, leaving Julie wondering how she got there. Akuri said she just flew over in a flash, but Cute thought there must be a gap in the room he built for her to escape. And now, everyone at home is probably worried and searching everywhere. Luckily, one of Mimiko's subordinates, disguised as a civilian and following them, was nearby, so Julie asked her to send a message back to the estate to ease their minds. Cute admitted Julie was truly cautious. Honestly, Julie had opposed raising Akuri out of concern for everyone's safety. Yet, Cute had argued back then, and now he felt a bit guilty. If Akuri turns out to be a monster, Cute doesn't know what to do, and it seemed Akuri sensed Cute's worry, so she encouraged him. Seeing that, Julie came closer to reassure Cute and ease his mind. She said no one knows what the future holds, but she believes Akuri will have a happy ending with everyone. Just then, an old man passed by and greeted Cute and Julie, surprisingly calling them the heroes of the world, whose duty is to defeat the Demon King and save this realm. And so both Kot and Akuri quickly replied, "We'll give it our all," but Julie was left bewildered, unsure how to respond. As Julie struggled to understand what was happening, a girl approached and introduced this as her father. He's quite elderly and a bit scatterbrained, often believing he's a cosmic prophet. "Please, Julie, just ignore what he said. I've heard that folks from the crafting workshop would come to help the village, but I never expected such a charming young couple like you two." Hearing that, both Kot and Julie were startled to be mistaken for a married pair, and Akuri also introduced these as her parents, leaving Kot utterly confused. Kot wondered if Julie was upset about being mistaken like that. At that moment, Kot asked what the girl needed his help with, and she explained that lately the pigs on her farm had stopped eating. Kot guessed it was probably due to the heat wave causing heat shock, so he would prepare cooling foods for them. Hearing this, the girl was overjoyed and handed over the task to Kot. Kot noticed Julie standing there frozen, thinking she was still angry, but it turned out she was in shock from the girl's earlier words. Julie kept mumbling about newlyweds under her breath, making Kot think she had truly lost her composure. Setting that aside, Kot and Akuri gathered plenty of ingredients to mix the feed, then spread it out for the pigs like true farmers. Only Julie couldn't focus on the work at all. She was worried about whether she was taller than Kot, but then Julie slapped her face to snap out of it. Ever since Akuri appeared, she'd been lost in foolish daydreams. Though Julie tried to convince herself that Kot was just like a little brother and she felt nothing more, every time she saw his smile, her heart skipped a beat. Right then, a massive dragon suddenly appeared in the sky and landed on the farm, so Julie drew her sword and warned Kot and Akuri to stay back. But Kot told Julie to step back instead, as he sheathed his sword. With that, the dragon landed, and Julie feared it would devour Akuri. Yet the dragon only ate the mix Kot had prepared, harming no one. Kot explained that Julie, being from the city, didn't know rural ways. In the countryside, dragons asking for livestock feed is perfectly normal, but to Julie, it was anything but normal. Meanwhile, Akuri thought it was just a giant flying dog, so Kot had to clarify it was a dragon, not a dog. Suddenly, Julie sensed something stirring in the orchard. She rushed in to check, and found one of Mimiko's subordinates had been slain. As she approached, she felt someone hiding in the leaves. So Julie slashed through the foliage and plunged into battle with the stranger. From the other side, Kot heard the clash of blades in the orchard and ran to see. He had no idea what Julie was doing in there. But Julie urgently told Kot to take Akuri and get away. As she spoke, the assassin burst from the orchard, facing Kot, so Julie quickly flew out to protect him and the child. The assassin demanded that Julie and Kot hand over the child. Seeing her appearance, Kot guessed she was likely a dragon hunter. But Julie sensed her power was far greater than that, so she urged Kot to take Akuri and flee. As Kot hesitated, the dragon from earlier grabbed his clothes and soared into the sky. Julie watched in awe, proud that Kot could tame such a beast. But now, she had to face the dangerous assassin alone. Truly, the assassin was overwhelmingly strong, and Julie couldn't hold her off. In moments, Julie took a direct kick that sent her flying meters away. Julie knew she could only stall to give Kot time to escape far away. As the enemy closed in, Julie used a rake on the ground to keep her distance. At that point, Julie wanted to know if the assassin was after Akuri or the dragon, but she got no answer and was attacked again. The next strike disarmed Julie of her sword, leaving her vulnerable to the assassin's claws. After that blow, Julie was gravely wounded and began to collapse. The enemy advanced on Julie to finish her off. But as she neared, Julie surprised through a crystal stone, causing a massive explosion. Meanwhile, the farm girl and her father, out for a walk, heard the blast and he declared it a sign of impending tragedy. Julie thought the assassin couldn't survive the crystal stone's blast. But moments later, the assassin emerged from the rubble, astonishing Julie. With horns on her head, Julie realized she was from the demon clan, a race that overpowers humans in both magic and strength. It's baffling why the demon clan appeared here. But she was baffled why the demon clan had shown up in this land. For hundreds of years, the demon clan had never actively appeared before humans. The enemy admitted Julie's strike had severely wounded her. No wonder you defeated the Demon King. Hearing that, Julie guessed the assassin had been watching her, knowing about the Demon King's defeat. So, it's likely she's after Kot, not Akuri or the dragon. Now, with no weapons left, Julie hoped Kot had escaped to the border for help, as she knew she wouldn't make it back. However, Kot unexpectedly returned with the dragon, leaving Julie speechless at his recklessness. She saw the dragon's immense power, but Kot's lack of fighting skill made it useless. Worse, he landed straight in the trees and crashed down in a cloud of dust. Julie rushed over, calling him a fool for not fleeing and coming back, but Kot said he returned to take Julie with him. With that, a herd of over 100 pigs that Kot had tamed charged in, and he lifted Julie onto a pig's back, racing to safety where Akuri waited. Julie wondered if in Kot's village, he often rode dragons to challenge the strong, but Kot replied that Julie was the most important woman, so as a man, he couldn't abandon her. Julie knew that when Kot spoke of the most important people, he meant his friends around him, not just her. That made Julie feel both joyful and sad. She often felt jealous when Liz or other girls got close to Kot, so she thought she might truly love him. Just then, the assassin's flames struck, turning their mounts into roasted pigs. In the end, Julie fell face first, and now they had to find a way to defeat the assassin here. Julie borrowed Kot's sword as her weapon, determined to fight to the death. Despite her severe wounds, she would do everything to protect the one she loved. Right after, the enemy unleashed flames at Julie, so she raised her sword, ready for battle. Julie decided to use her demon-slaying technique to cut through the enemy's magic. Though she'd never succeeded before, she believed Kot's sword could make it possible. At that moment, Akuri suddenly appeared above Julie and hugged her. The enemy saw this and quickly withdrew the flames to avoid harming Akuri. This shocked Kot, as he couldn't understand the assassin's motives. Julie thought the assassin stopped to protect Akuri, so she asked if Akuri was the child she was after. However, gravely wounded, the assassin didn't answer and chose to retreat. Julie was also too injured to stand. Seeing this, Kot poured some medicine into Julie's mouth to help her recover. As Julie lay in Kot's arms, she wanted to act a little vulnerable, but when Akuri approached, Julie sprang up and asked how the child had flown here. Kot was also baffled, as Akuri seemed to teleport out of nowhere. Hearing this, Julie recalled that teleportation magic was still being researched by the royalty. And to use it, one needed a teleportation stone, yet Akuri could teleport freely, which was truly rare, so Julie asked the child to try it again. However, the child tried casting spells but couldn't teleport anymore. Setting that aside, Kot wondered where the assassin had fled and thought about pursuing her, but first he had to tend to the pigs. Later, Kot safely returned the pigs to the farm without losing any. Seeing the pigs healthy again, the farm girl was deeply grateful to Kot's group. Meanwhile, Kot rode the dragon, tracking the assassin's trail. Luckily, the dragon spotted her, so Kot landed immediately. After all the chaos, Julie felt relieved that Kot and the child were safe, but she still puzzled over the assassin's strange actions. Clearly, when she saw Akuri, her face showed extreme worry. Perhaps withdrawing her attack was to keep Akuri unharmed. So Julie wanted to learn more about the assassin to uncover Akuri's origins and her ability to teleport freely. Just then, Kot rode the dragon to Julie, bringing back a trophy, so she leaned in to see what it was. It turned out to be the assassin, leaving Julie too disappointed to speak. Earlier, Kot had found her collapsed in the forest. Though she lost a lot of blood, she was still alive, so Kot debated if saving her would bring harm. In the end, he gathered his courage to brew medicine and save her life. The assassin called him a fool, saying his actions would only lead to death, but Kot knew that if she hadn't withdrawn her attack, both Julie and Akuri would have died. That reason alone was enough for him to save her. After finishing the medicine, Kot tossed it to her. He said that without it she'd surely die. With that, she quickly drank the whole bottle, restoring her body instantly. Of course, she still didn't want to spare Kot, but her strength faded. It turned out Kot had added a sedative as a precaution. He told her she'd sleep for 3 days and lectured that as a dragon hunter she couldn't attack humans. Hearing this, she was stunned by Kot's innocence. For his part, Kot thought she wouldn't change, unlike Hyde, and at the mention of Hyde she jolted, seeming eager for information. But the sedative took effect, and she passed out. That's the whole story Kot shared with Julie. That evening, they returned home with the assassin. Today's events left Julie exhausted, but Kot was still cheerfully playing with his daughter. Both Sina and Liz were overjoyed that Akuri was safe. Seeing everyone's happiness, Julie set aside her jealousy. After all, Akuri had saved her life today. Just then, a stranger appeared at the mansion, surprising Kot and Julie. He introduced himself as the new master craftsman of the workshop, which intrigued Kot about his talents. At that moment, he introduced his name as Rikuto and hoped for everyone's support. Kot responded by introducing himself to get acquainted. Rikuto admired Kot for building such an impressive workshop. But Julie was suspicious, wondering how he could be the workshop's master craftsman. So she told Kot to put everything aside and prepare dinner. Sina would take care of Akuri to ensure her safety. Suddenly, Rikuto lunged at Julie, pinning her against the wall as if flirting. Julie kicked back instantly, but couldn't touch him. It turned out Rikuto was just an illusion created by Liz's magic sword, and it could even create illusions of non-existent people. Specifically, Liz had made it look like Kot at age 20, which she found thrilling. Just then, Julie received a message from Mimiko. She said she'd come to report on the investigation about Akuri. Sure enough, 3 days later, Mimiko arrived at the workshop, building everyone's suspense. They all wanted to know Akuri's true origins, but Mimiko bluntly said she didn't know, leaving everyone speechless. In truth, Mimiko had analyzed the hair and saliva samples Julie sent, and the results showed Akuri was completely human-like. But in Akuri's nails, there was a substance resembling magic crystals. It's used for spatial magic and doesn't appear in humans. In the past, spatial magic was used in the dawn of creation. Now, that magic is lost, and no one can use it. Surprisingly, Mimiko found traces of it in Akuri. Kot heard this and wondered if Akuri was a monster. Mimiko wasn't sure, only that Akuri has a human form but isn't human. Akuri's appearance at the mansion made Mimiko a bit fearful, so she suggested sealing the child's teleportation ability. Hearing this, Kot strongly objected to treating his daughter that way. First, he asked Mimiko if she feared he'd harm her. Of course not, as Mimiko trusted Kot like a friend. Similarly, Kot felt completely at ease with Akuri. So whether Akuri is human or not doesn't matter. Earlier, Akuri worried about the dragon hunter and visited her, proving the child has a kind heart like a human. Therefore, Akuri will stay with him, and no one can take her away. Julie agreed with Kot, as Akuri had saved her once. At the same time, L deeply trusts Akuri, so he'll stand by her side no matter what. Seeing everyone united like this, Mimiko smiles and agrees to entrust Akuri to their care. Now, the most pressing matter is the dragon hunter who attacked C's group. C tells Mimiko that she's locked away in the basement of the estate. But C hopes Mimiko will show mercy and not throw her into prison. First, Mimiko injects a vial to wake her up, yet she remains cautious, knowing demons are ancient enemies of humanity. Sure enough, she unleashes a fiery spell against everyone around. Luckily, the room is sealed with a magic barrier, so no one is harmed. Mimiko quickly asks if she has any accomplices outside. As a warrior, she only submits to those who have defeated her. So, she demands that C come here personally before she'll speak. With that, everyone steps out to call C in for the interrogation. Upon meeting her, C apologizes for the restraints binding her, because he wants to talk things through before setting her free. First, she asks about the name Hyde that C mentioned earlier, so C explains that Hyde is the daughter of a merchant who often visits his village. And Hyde has 2 horns on her head, so C thinks she might know her. Hearing this, she asks if Hyde always wears a winged lion badge. C recalls and confirms that Hyde does wear that badge. At this, she urgently declares that she wants to save Lady Hyde, because Hyde is imprisoned in the Marquise's castle. Hearing this, C can't believe the cunning Marquis would do such a thing, so he turns to everyone for help in rescuing Hyde. However, Julie still doubts her, thinking the demon is lying. She believes she's just saying this to get it over with. After all, if she wanted to save Hyde, why attack Akuri in the first place? The demon explains that her goal was to investigate the Marquis. Even he is seeking information on C after the town rescue. At that time, she witnessed Akuri suddenly appearing from the void and landing on the carriage, so she believes Akuri's teleportation power could save Hyde. Julie demands proof, so she asks Julie to check the necklace she's wearing. Julie picks it up and sees it's indeed the winged lion badge Hyde gave. Earlier, she noticed Julie's dagger has the same winged lion symbol, so she withdrew her fire spell and spared Julie. C also confirms that his dagger was from Hyde. After this discussion, everyone finally believes her words. Mimiko agrees to join the group in rescuing Hyde. But the demon must stay confined in this room, or no one will save Hyde. Kot encourages the demon, hoping she'll stay put. Hearing this, she relaxes and introduces herself as Sun. And Kot promises Sun that they will definitely rescue Hyde. Right then, Akuri suddenly teleports into the room, startling everyone. It turns out this is her instant teleportation ability, and she apologizes profusely to Kot for interrupting their conversation. Afterward, Kot goes to Mimiko to plan Hyde's rescue. Even though he's the most impatient, he doesn't know how to proceed. So, Mimiko shows everyone the blueprints of the Marquis' estate. She explains that he lost his wife 10 years ago after their first daughter's birth, and last year, his daughter died from illness. In the Marquis' estate, there's a special room only he can enter. Occasionally, he brings food into that room. Son reveals she once infiltrated the estate but couldn't open that room. Even Mimiko's subordinates couldn't get in, so only treasure hunters could unlock it. Elle suggests creating an illusionary thief with wall-piercing magic to make the Marquis open the room himself. That way, he'll have to check it regularly. Everyone agrees this plan makes sense, so Elle assigns the master craftsman Rikuto to handle it. Coincidentally, next week, the Marquis will host a 3-day festival in his city, so the group will use that as an excuse to visit and introduce Rikuto. On that occasion, Elle wants to research the market, and when the chance arises, the team will storm the estate to save Hyde. Hearing this, Jullie realizes it's a rare opportunity for a date with Kot. So, she challenges Elle to rock, paper, scissors to see who goes with him first, but Jullie loses badly, leaving her frustrated. Everyone around just shakes their heads, as the rescue mission has turned into a rivalry for a date. That evening, the group sets off toward the Marquis' city. This time, Akuri insists on joining and won't stay home. Rikuto reveals he's from the royal family, so he can't let Lady Hyde be held captive by a noble like his own possession. Soon after, they stop at a grand hotel. Rikuto bids farewell to everyone to handle his part, and Jullie leaves to gather more information on the Marquis. Elle is already thinking about tomorrow's date, so she'll rest early, and Akuri is excited too, so Kot promises to take her to enjoy the festival fully. The next morning, the festival unfolds across the city's streets. with Kot's group feeling just like a small family exploring together. It's not just drums and music, trade is buzzing everywhere. Elle notices a stall selling thornless cactus fruit, a desert kingdom specialty that reveals sweet water inside when cut, so Kot buys 2 for him and Akuri to quench their thirst. He'll share with both of them. Akuri offers some to Kot, and he admits the cactus water is irresistibly delicious. Elle joins in, handing hers to Kot for the first sip, and he drinks without hesitation, leaving her longing for more. When he hands it back, she sips eagerly from where he drank, treasuring it like an indirect kiss. She even pockets the cactus fruit as a priceless memento. Elle thinks that if Kot was once an adventurer, he's probably seen many festivals across the land, but Kot says he was always too busy maintaining gear and watching the horses to enjoy them. As just a helper, he never complained, but he always wanted to experience a grand festival once. Hearing this, Elle feels his past was truly heartbreaking, so today, the 3 of them will have fun to make up for what he missed. And she plans to confess her feelings to Kot after the festival. Right after, the 3 join the red bean balancing game. The red bean balancing game. If they win, they'll get 10 pounds of fresh red beans, and as a master craftsman, Kot balances perfectly to claim the prize for the group. Next come many other games, letting Akuri enjoy the festival to the fullest. At day's end, Elle takes Kot to a peaceful park by the waters surrounding the Marquis's castle, believing it's the perfect spot to confess and win his heart. She even daydreams romantic scenarios where Kot realizes her feelings, but reality disappoints as Kot looks ahead with a sorrowful face. It turns out they're facing the Marquis's castle, where Hyde is imprisoned, leaving Elle's plans in ruins. Kot believes they'll soon rescue Hyde. He's just heartbroken that he can't do anything right now. Hearing this, Elle knows now isn't the time for a confession. She admits she deeply cares for Kot, and everyone around him feels the same, which is why they're all giving their all to help save Hyde. This isn't just workshop business, it's because they're on Kot's side, supporting him fully. Hearing this, Kot is moved to tears. He confesses that he cherishes everyone and always wants to be useful to them. Just then, Akuri returns hungry, so Kot rushes to take her for food. Watching the father-daughter duo so joyful, Elle thinks today is enough. Though her confession failed, she won't let the next chance slip away. The next morning, Jolly asks Kot to forge a brand new sword, since hers broke in the battle with the demon. Kot even gathers rare materials himself and borrows a local forge. At first, the old blacksmith teases Kot for using such a tiny pot to forge a sword. But he's stunned when the blade cuts through a boulder effortlessly, realizing he's just a novice who dared to judge, so he decides to train in the mountains until he matches Kot. Now, Jolly sees the shimmering blade like flowers in a snowstorm, and names it Snow Harmony. Seeing Jolly so thrilled with the sword, Kot feels satisfied, and back home she admires it for a while, vowing tomorrow's date with Kot will be unforgettable. Kot. Yesterday, Akuri played at the festival all day. So Kot will leave her at home. Thus, only Kot and Jolly head out to survey the market together. Survey the market. Julie was an adventurer who traveled the land, so she knows all the great spots, promising an unforgettable date. But on the street, Jolly witnesses thugs harassing a dumpling shop owner. At first, she pretends not to see to keep the date going, but Kot can't ignore it and steps in to ask what's wrong. It turns out the thugs claim the dumplings taste like garbage and want to wreck the shop to save people from buying them. Kot picks up a fallen dumpling, pays the owner, and tastes it, declaring it's delicious with carefully selected ingredients, so 1 gold coin for it is a bargain. Seeing this, the thugs turn on Kot, but Jolly steps in, warning them he's from the magic workshop and not to mess with him. Hearing that, they realize they've picked a fight with nobles and bolt away, not daring to look back. Kot checks the owner's injuries and sees his bones are broken. Jolly thinks a sip of Kot's potion would heal him, but Kot says his medicine won't work and rushes him to the hospital. So, Kot carries the owner straight to the hospital, leaving Jolly speechless as their first date is derailed. The shop owner's daughter cries nearby. She seems scared of the thugs, so Jolly comforts her that everything's okay, and luckily, a subordinate of Mimiko is selling cactus fruit nearby, so Jolly buys some to cheer the child up. Upon meeting, Jolly hears that there's a cooking contest this afternoon for street vendors. Geigo's restaurant has won for 2 years straight, but this year, a dumpling shop with amazing food could humiliate him, so he hired thugs to sabotage it. Finished, Jolly realizes that scoundrel Geigo is the one who ruined her date. Luckily, the thugs are gone and won't cause more trouble, so Jolly believes when Kot returns, the date can continue. Later, Kot comes back saying the owner's injuries are severe, so he'll be in the hospital until tomorrow, and he's worried about his daughter and shop. So, Kot promises the owner he'll handle everything, and he asks Jolly to help watch the dumpling shop. Hearing this, Jolly sadly realizes the date is completely ruined. It's all because of that wretched Geigo, so she swears to win the cooking contest and get revenge. However, the shop owner's daughter, Luna, sadly says the thugs already ruined the dumpling filling. Now, there are no ingredients left for making dumplings, let alone competing, but Jullie reassures her that she and Kot will take care of it all. Kot quickly thinks of an alternative ingredient for the dumplings. Jullie wants Kot to share the full recipe with Luna so she can make them herself. The dumplings to claim victory, and she believes when Luna's father returns, he'll be so proud. Luna hears this and resolves to win the cooking contest, filling Jullie with joy as she asks Kot what the ingredient is. So, Kot asks Jullie to buy lots of ripe cactus fruit from the market, then fetch the red beans he brought yesterday from the inn, and Kot will dig a hot spring right at the shop. Hearing this, Jullie is baffled, wondering why Kot needs a hot spring, especially since this is the Marquis' square, and they'd need his permission for anything. But Kot doesn't care and just asks Luna to lend him a space. That afternoon, the cooking contest kicks off across the neighborhood, with judges sampling each stall. They find Geigo's donuts quite tasty, better than the others, so they think he'll win again this year. Geigo smirks, knowing he bribed the judges. He figures victory will be easy, just like every year. But now, townsfolk are going wild over the red bean dumplings, with their soft shells and mouth-watering fillings. And they're buzzing that it's from the Moon Garden dumpling shop. Hearing this, Geigo is shocked, since he ordered his men to wreck that shop. But when he arrives, he's stunned to see a line of customers eager to buy. Kot and Akuri are busy serving everyone. Dumplings fly off the shelves as fast as they're made, leaving Geigo in disbelief. He wondered why the shop was in ruins yet still bustling with sales, even featuring a soothing hot spring nearby for customers to relax and rejuvenate, and they showed up after hearing about the delicious buns here. Just then, the judges arrived, drawn by rumors of the mouth-watering buns that left everyone craving more. Geigo, seeing this, quickly spun lies, claiming the buns were all subpar, with blackened fillings proving they were spoiled and unfit. Yet, Luna brought the buns forward for the judges to examine closely. Indeed, upon opening them, they thought the insides were pure charcoal. Luna explained that it was actually simmered red beans from the east, rich and perfectly cooked. Plus, a faint, enticing aroma of cactus fruit made them yearn to take a bite and savor the magic. Earlier, Kot had detailed the baking process, explaining how high heat turned cactus water into a marvelous syrup. Then, Luna mixed that cactus syrup with red beans to create an utterly supreme bun filling. Sure enough, upon tasting, the judges praised the buns as absolutely divine. The soft crust melted in the mouth, while the filling released an irresistible aroma, and each bun was incredibly affordable, costing just 1 gold coin. Geigo, hearing this, was stunned, unable to believe the truth unfolding. He took a bite himself and suddenly felt life blooming like a vibrant flower. The judges then curiously asked about the secret behind these buns. Jullie stepped in, revealing that her boss, Kot, was deeply serious about baking and had even dug a hot spring to steam the buns perfectly. Hearing this, Geigo grew furious, insisting no one could just dig a hot spring on a whim. It's just boiled water who has time to use spring water for steaming buns. But Jullie clarified that Kot is a magic workshop employee, so digging a hot spring was a quick task for him. However, Geigo accused Kot of digging the hot spring without permission from the Duke. If the Duke finds out, you're all headed straight for a lifelong prison sentence. So, Jullie presented the permit from Princess L. In the face of the princess's decree, even Tycoon wouldn't dare object. From now on, the hot spring will be managed by the city, turning it into a new tourist hotspot that draws visitors from across the kingdom. Hearing this, Geigo realized he was on the brink of total defeat. He desperately begged the judges for help, reminding them of the bribes he'd given them before. Yet, the judges no longer cared for his money, as they were now obsessed with the buns. Geigo, defeated, could only pin his hopes on his henchman, Lom Zom. He ordered them to storm in and smash the shop to pieces. Even if they end up in jail, he'll bribe to get them out one by one. However, the 3 of them suddenly let out feminine cries, leaving Geigo bewildered. It turned out Elle had used her magic sword to disguise as Geigo's henchmen, while the real ones were already locked away. At that moment, Jullie arrived and listed out Geigo's litany of crimes. She knew he supplied ingredients to Tycoon's chefs, then used their leftovers to serve in his own restaurant. Worse, he added addictive substances to the food to lure customers back repeatedly. Hearing this, Geigo tried to defend himself but had no words left, because when Elle impersonated him, the chef spilled all his secrets without suspicion. Jullie advised Geigo to surrender quietly, but he was so enraged that he lost all reason. He immediately drew a knife and aimed straight at Elle. However, the henchman quickly restrained Geigo, leaving him immobilized. And after this act, Jullie was certain he'd face a lifelong prison term, as he'd attacked the 3rd princess of the kingdom. In the end, Geigo gave up, letting the princess's guards escort him to the dungeons, and through this ordeal, he was so terrified that he never dared touch buns again. Elle was delighted, thinking Julie's date had failed, but in truth, Julie no longer cared about romance or fun. For her, bringing smiles to Cot and Luna was happiness enough. On the other side, Tycoon couldn't believe Gago was imprisoned. His subordinate reported that Gago had drawn a knife on the third princess during the festival. Hearing this, Tycoon was furious, shocked that Gago was so foolish, and even some cooks linked to him were arrested, leaving Tycoon worried about finding chefs for tomorrow's tea party with the princess. The subordinate suggested using the winning dish from the competition. It's those buns, perfect for a tea gathering. Tycoon thought it made sense, as if the princess enjoyed the festival, she wouldn't mind street food delights. So, he ordered his subordinate to invite the baker here first thing in the morning. Earlier, Tycoon had granted the princess permission for Cot to dig the hot spring, and Elle had mentioned she'd visit him tomorrow with the master craftsman. Hearing this, Tycoon wondered why the princess paid him such attention. Had she uncovered his shady dealings all along? But Tycoon saw meeting the master craftsman as a rare chance to share his deepest desires. The next morning, everyone carefully planned, as today was the decisive day to rescue Hyde. After investigating, Julie believed Hyde was likely imprisoned in the kitchen area. That place was locked up tight, making entry difficult. So, Rikuto wanted to find proof of Hyde's imprisonment to force Tycoon to open the room. Cot, hearing this, put all his trust in Julie's group, while he and Akari would help at the bun shop with Luna. After Cot left, Elle appeared with her magic sword. Julie saw that this butterfly sword was an incredibly powerful weapon, but its flaw was needing to be drawn to cast illusions, so it couldn't be brought to meet Tycoon. Moreover, illusions couldn't touch physical objects. So, Julie devised a plan for Elle to turn invisible and control two illusions to converse with Tycoon. If anything needed touching, Elle would assist from behind, and Elle was confident this would outsmart him. In the carriage, Elle created two illusions, ready for the rescue plan. But just then, Julie and Liz received a message from the subordinate that Cot and Akuri had been hired as chefs in the castle, making the two laugh uncontrollably. They couldn't believe Cot had derailed the plan and entered the castle ahead of the group. It turned out Tycoon's guards had come to the shop early that morning to meet Cot and requested he prepare 100 hot spring buns for them. They even wanted to take Cot to the castle to bake, but since Luna had to stay at the shop, Cot said he'd bake them there, then deliver the full 100 to the castle. Coincidentally, a fresh batch was just out of the oven, so he invited them to try. Seeing this, they agreed, each taking one to see if it lived up to the hype. Indeed, each of them felt transported to a heavenly realm. The whole group stood frozen like statues, not uttering a word. At first, they thought these guards had been up all night on duty and were dozing off, but soon they awoke, saying all fatigue had vanished. Cot was confident in his baking skills, so he followed them to the castle, with Luna wishing him and Akuri a safe journey. On the way, Cot was thrilled about such a large order for the first time, but he suddenly realized they were leading him to Duke Tycoon's castle, and this was where Hyde was imprisoned, filling him with worry. The 100 buns turned out to be for Tycoon's reception of some princess. Cot grew anxious, fearing rushed buns might displease the princess and land him in jail for discourtesy. He might even be accused of insolence and thrown into prison, but Tycoon's servant reassured Cot not to worry at all. Just stay in this room until the meeting ends, as the Duke might summon you any time during the gathering. With that, the servant took the buns to the guest room, leaving Cot and Akuri behind. And now, before him was a secret room, possibly where Hyde was held. Meanwhile, Liz and Rikuto were in the guest room, starting their conversation with Tycoon. First, he apologized to Elle about the Gargo incident. But Liz pretended to forgive Tycoon, since Gargo had nothing to do with him anyway. Outside, Julie hoped the princess would handle everything smoothly, and prayed Cot wouldn't do anything foolish to ruin the plan. On this side, Akuri was full of excitement, while Cot fidgeted restlessly. He always felt that stepping through that door would lead straight to Hyde. But Cot reminded himself not to act recklessly, or the rescue plan would fail. Akuri, seeing Cot's worry, asked what was wrong with her father. So, Cot shared that a friend of his was behind that door, but it was locked tight, blocking entry. Hearing this, Akuri said, "Let me take you to them." With that, she used her teleportation to whisk Cot through the door. Cot was startled to realize that touching Akuri let him teleport with her. However, Cot thought his presence here was too dangerous, so he asked Akuri to teleport them back to the kitchen. Sadly, Akuri couldn't use her power consecutively, so she cried and apologized to her father. Hearing this, Cot felt for her, so he reassured her that everything was fine. Just then, Cot heard the voice of a mature woman behind another door. He suspected Hyde might be imprisoned there, So, the young man grabbed his tools and picked the lock to rush inside, and in just a few seconds the door swung open. But the person inside was an elderly woman. Meanwhile, Tycoon got straight to the point, wanting to appoint Rikuto as vice-ruler. But first, Rikuto wanted to know why he was making this offer. Elle, seeing this, sent her clone outside so they could talk privately, because she knew this sly old fox had a massive secret he wouldn't share with many. So, Elle would stay invisible in the room, waiting for him to reveal it all. At that moment, Rikuto asked Tycoon what he expected him to do. Hearing this, Tycoon was delighted, thinking Rikuto was interested. He asked Rikuto if he had any desire for eternal life. This question left Elle utterly astonished. On this side, the elderly woman was honored that Kot had come to visit. But Kot felt a bit disappointed, as he hadn't found Hyde yet. Akuri noticed something and asked if the woman was ill, and she admitted she was suffering from a dangerous disease, with no appetite lately. Hearing this, Akuri offered her own bun to the woman, hoping it would help her recover. And at that moment, Kot recognized the disease she had. Around the same age as him, yet her face looked. Kot asked why she was around his age but looked so aged. Hearing this, the woman was surprised that Kot had seen through her disguise. Before, Kot had picked the lock and made delicious buns. So, she wondered if Kot was some famous mage invited by her father to cure her, but Kot quickly clarified that he was just a simple servant. The woman was glad to tell Kot that Hyde was indeed imprisoned in the basement, and she believed Kot could save her. Hearing this, Kot felt a surge of emotion, recalling how Hyde had visited his village 10 years ago. If she's inside, Kot needed something to break through the wall. So, the young man pulled out a bread tool to smash the wall, leaving the woman baffled. And it turned out she had a proper passage. So, she led Kot through it. Elle was shocked to learn Tycoon sought eternal life, and Rikuto admitted that was the ultimate goal in Master Craftsman research. Tycoon explained that this world has long-lived races, like the elves. So, in the past, there were experiments grafting elf cells onto humans, but Rikuto knew all those experiments failed and caused horrific consequences. So, cell grafting was banned by law from then on. However, Tycoon blindly believed Rikuto's talent could create an immortality potion. Now, Elle understood Tycoon had captured Hyde for this very research. Of course, Rikuto refused, as it violated both laws and church doctrines. From observing the room, Rikuto knew Tycoon wasn't driven by wealth or power. So, he wanted to know whom Tycoon planned to use the potion for. At this, Tycoon grew angry and refused to say another word. So, Elle had to think of another way to lure him to the prison room. Hyde acted quickly, causing a ruckus outside, making Julie shout in alarm. She rushed in, telling everyone to stay in the room because thieves had broken in, and now they're heading toward the kitchen area. Hearing this, Tycoon looked terrified and excused himself to check the kitchen. Julie was thrilled, as the plan had succeeded in trapping Tycoon. She quickly turned invisible and followed to see what Tycoon would do, and she created 2 illusion thieves to break into the room ahead. So, Tycoon hurriedly opened the door and called out to his daughter, Famil. Hearing this, Elle was stunned, as Tycoon had previously announced his daughter was dead. Yet now, he called her name as if she was still alive. When there was no response, Tycoon entered the secret passage leading to Hyde, leaving Elle alone. So, she decided to search the room. She found a strand of hair on the bed from someone in disguise. Using her scent spell, she detected Kot's smell, proving he had been there earlier. So, Lies decides to return to July's side and call her to join along. Meanwhile, Curie has been taken to the room where Hyde is imprisoned, and he silently apologizes to his teammates for his reckless rush to save Hyde. When the door opens, they find Hyde truly bound to the wall by a magic array. Curie rushes closer, calling Hyde's name, leaving her utterly surprised. Because now it's the Curie from 10 years ago, Curie is overjoyed that Hyde still remembers him. Meanwhile, Famil uses the system to dismantle the magic array and free Hyde. Seeing Hyde unharmed, Curie feels a wave of joy, but he notices that Hyde hasn't aged a bit, even after 10 years. So, he compliments Hyde as a girl who stays forever young. But as soon as he finishes, Hyde punches him hard, blaming it all on him. It turns out the potion Curie made 10 years ago stopped Hyde from aging at all. Curie quickly apologizes to Hyde and explains that he mixed up the rainbow flower formula. However, Hyde won't listen and demands that Curie take responsibility for her body. On top of that, he left the village, making her search for 10 years without finding him. Akuri steps in to stop Hyde from hitting her father anymore. Don't hit her father anymore. Hearing that, Hyde gets even more furious, shocked that Curie had an affair and had a daughter. Curie explains that Akuri was born from a water spirit, not his biological child. So, Hyde finally forgives Curie and asks if he has anything to eat. With that, he pulls out a rock-hard bread, nearly breaking Hyde's teeth. At this moment, Famille realizes Hyde's eternal youth comes from Curie's potion. Hyde confirms that it's true. So, she asks Curie if he can make that potion again. But Curie says he hasn't seen the rainbow flower since then, and he's quite surprised that the elderly woman before him is Taikon's daughter. Yet, he was told that his daughter had passed away. In all this, Curie is clueless, not understanding Taikon's true motives. A man grieving his daughter's illness, only to imprison someone eternally young like Hyde. At this point, Curie recalls his conversation with Sakura's group. He asked them why Taikon imprisoned Hyde, and Khan suggests that Taikon might have strange obsessions. Right then, Taikon enters the room and feels relieved that his daughter is safe. Then, he turns to Curie, calling him a thief for breaking in, but Curie insists he came only to save Hyde. He lectures Taikon that everything he's done is wrong. As a father himself, he deeply loves his daughter, but Taikon's love for Hyde is twisted by his own darkness. In fact, Curie concludes that Taikon is a perverted old man who captures innocent girls. Hearing this, Taikon cries out in protest, feeling wrongly accused. He says that Famille is the priceless gift from his wife, so he'd sacrifice his life to save Famille from her deadly illness. Both Famille and Hyde are left speechless by Curie's outrageous words. So, Hyde uses a paralysis spell to knock Curie down, silencing him, because the more Curie speaks, the more chaos ensues. After that, Hyde asks Famille if she's certain about her decision, and Famille agrees, begging Hyde to take her father's life. Taikon is stunned by his daughter's words. He can't fathom why his daughter wants him dead. So, Taikon waddles his bulky body out to save his own skin. However, Lise and July block the exit, trapping him completely. Lise knows that Famille suffers from severe aging syndrome, and even if cured, her body won't fully recover. So, he desperately tries to halt her aging by using demon cells to create an elixir of immortality. At this moment, Taikon admits that for years he's followed a demon's advice to cure his daughter. Now, he can't die until Famille is healed. So, Taikon decides to sell his soul to summon the demon. With that, he uses his own blood to activate the magic array in the room. But as the light flashes, it instantly fades, leaving Taikon baffled. It turns out the demon summoning array needs immense magic power from the dragon vein, and Lise tells Taikon so. It relies on the dragon vein, and Lise tells Taikon that he can't use it anymore because Curie dug a hot spring earlier, altering the dragon vein's flow. At this point, Hyde appears outside, making Taikon terrified. She greets July and Lise, thanking them for taking care of Curie all this time. Hearing this, Lise realizes Hyde is her greatest rival. The two glare at each other, while July focuses on Curie, asking if he's okay. Hyde says she's put Curie to rest in the room below, as she doesn't want him to see what she's about to do. With that, Hyde creates a sword and aims to sever Taikon's head, because if Taikon lives, he'll surely summon demons again. Back then, demons were born, and many around would die, not just him. She explains that Famille isn't happy seeing Taikon corrupted like this. That's why she begged Hyde to end her father's life quickly. Now, Taikon learns the truth. His daughter wants him dead. But to save his daughter, he accepts sacrificing himself and those around him. Hearing this, Hyde is furious and decides to send him to his grave immediately. However, Famille arrives just in time to stop Hyde. She's broken the curse, reverting to her youthful form, astonishing everyone. Famille reveals that Curie cured her with his hot spring bread, leaving everyone baffled and speechless. Meanwhile, Curie wakes as the paralysis spell weakens. Now, his body can move a little, so he asks his daughter to get the brown bottle from his bag. This is a potion that helps humans recover from exhaustion. Akuri opens it and gives Curie a pill, waking him as if nothing happened. After his daughter recovers, Taikon regrets his actions deeply. He apologizes to the princess, begging for mercy. Of course, Lise can't ignore it, as Taikon committed the grave sin of summoning demons. But Famille says her father did it all to save her, so she'll take his punishment. In truth, Lise is now a member of the magic workshop, not the princess, so she'll decide based on the workshop's interests. From today, Taikon must devote all his efforts to support the magic workshop's growth. Hearing this, Taikon is overjoyed to have saved his life. Besides, Lise has many things to discuss privately with Hyde, and once the talk ends, the princess will free Hyde and her subordinate, Sun. July thinks that once Curie leaves, the magic array will be dispelled. But right then, a stranger named Scriptor suddenly appears in the room. He claims he's written many stories with tragic endings, and now someone is overwriting his tale, so he must fix it. Hyde knows Scriptor well and sees through his malicious intent. Taikon also reveals that Scriptor gave him Hyde and taught him how to summon demons. Before that, Scriptor incited the demon clan to attack the palace after Hyde was captured. However, Hyde warned her people not to attack humans if anything happened. Because of that, Scriptor used Tychon to summon demons into this world. He admits he's the mastermind manipulating the church priest to assassinate the princess. But Scriptor's scripts keep failing, so now he's here to uncover the truth. He asks how Famil broke the aging curse. Hearing this, Tychon realizes Scriptor is the one who caused his daughter's suffering, so he charges with a punch, but Scriptor blocks it with a shield. July also draws her sword and charges, but his shield cracks this time. Scriptor recognizes July's sword as the legendary Holy Blade. Demons facing the Holy Sword is dangerous, so he pulls out a summoning vial, terrifying Hyde. She urges everyone to grab the vial, but it's too late. He spills it around the room, reactivating the magic array. And with the words, "As long as you suffer," he leaves, as that familiar, sinister laugh echoes, filling everyone with dread. The Demon King appears, saying he never expected to face you all again. July wonders how he's still alive after the last battle, so he explains that demons are soul entities, their bodies mere vessels. Are mere vessels, so when restored to full power, he returns to the human world. July tries to draw her weapon to attack, but he blows it away instantly. Even Hyde's magic attacks have no effect. In fact, he unleashes poisonous thorns, immobilizing July and Lise. The Demon King tells them he has a magic barrier, so no spells can penetrate, only the Holy Sword can harm him. Sadly, no one can move to wield it. However, July realizes the Demon King is soul exhausted, toying with them to gain the upper hand. From that, he boosts his strength. So, if someone shakes his resolve, he can't stay in this world. Thus, they don't need to defeat him, just make him retreat. But his thorns dig deeper, showing pain on the two women's faces. Beside them, Tychon feels helpless. Right then, Curie appears, shocking everyone. They fear Curie will become the Demon King's prey, but he shows no fear and mocks him, saying the Demon Kings are extinct, so how is one left? July thinks taunting him is a great way to unsettle the Demon King, but she knows Curie means it sincerely. Indeed, the Demon King is furious at being belittled, so he hurls a massive fire spell at Curie. However, Akuri quickly redirects the flames toward the Demon King, making him scream in agony. After this blow, his thorns vanish, freeing the two women just in time. The Demon King regains his composure, preparing his next attack. July sees this and grabs her sword, standing protectively in front of Curie. Though she failed last time, with this superior sword, she's confident now. And as the fire spell comes, July unleashes her ultimate anti-magic slash. She believes that combining her strength with Curie's will surely succeed. With Curie, it will surely succeed. Surprisingly, the sword absorbs the Demon King's magic, turning it into green flames, and she names this technique the secret magic absorption. Then, July hurls this magic back at the Demon King, making him wail in pain. Knowing he's about to return to hell, he launches a spear at Hyde to drag her along. The result is Hyde takes the hit, terrifying everyone. However, the Demon King's spear shatters, leaving him confused, because it could pierce the hardest metals in the world. It turns out Hyde had Curie's ultra-hard bread hidden on her. This leaves the Demon King baffled, so he asks who Curie really is. Curie tells him he's just a simple worker at the magic workshop. At that moment, the Demon King feels a strange familiarity. He asks Curie if he's from the singing village in the north. And when Curie confirms he's from there, the Demon King cries out and dissolves into dust. Right after, Curie tells everyone that his village was often attacked by the Demon King, but they devised ways to eliminate them one by one. At first, Lise finds it hard to believe, but with Curie, she has no doubts, because only he could defeat the Demon King so magically with bread. Now, Lise is thrilled that everything is resolved. But just then, a massive water rift appears in the magic array. Hyde explains that Scriptor's potion can summon demons without a soul sacrifice. And at the end, it reclaims souls equal to the magic used for the summoning. According to Hyde's calculation, it will take about 100 people nearby as offerings, so July fears it will devour everyone in the castle. But in the direst moment, Tychon's servant appears with hot spring bread. The tentacles snatch up the bread and vanish into the void, leaving everyone in utter shock. What just happened? It turns out earlier, the servant contacted Bandana. She's a member of the Fire Dragon Fang team and Curie's old comrade. Bandana reveals that originally, bao buns weren't meant as food at all. They were crafted by ancient people by stuffing meat inside a wheat dough shell, then shaped into human figures. In the end, they were offered by humans to gods and demons as sacrifices, in exchange for peace and tranquility. Over time, bao buns transformed into the delicious food we enjoy today. Additionally, the bao buns that Curie makes can even summon wishes from demons. So, the servant realizes that Curie can fully summon demons to the human world and command them at will. The next morning, Taikon announces to the people that his daughter is still alive, filling the entire city with joyous celebration. Meanwhile, Hyde and Son set off on their journey back to their homeland. At the same time, the Moon Garden Baobun shop is thriving, and their hot spring foot-soaking service is beloved by the locals. Furthermore, Bandana quietly investigates Akuri's origins, discovering she was born from the heartfelt wish of a great sage. And the guild leader Gonova has been released from prison, continuing his adventures with his team. As soon as Curie returns home, Sina steps out to congratulate him on becoming a knight. It turns out Taikon reported everything that happened in the city to the king. July played a major role in driving away the demons, so she was honored with the title of Baron. Rikuto owns the magic workshop, so he was appointed as the deputy lord of the city, and Curie, for his efforts in building the hot springs, was granted the title of knight on the spot. But July shares her grand ambition. One day she'll help Curie become the lord of this land, leaving July speechless with surprise. Meanwhile, Hyde continues her journey back to the demon realm. And before departing, Curie gives her a beautiful flower he crafted from rare, precious materials. Curie explains that he tried to find a rainbow flower but couldn't, so he made this one especially for her, hoping that whenever Hyde is free, she'll return to this land to visit him. Though Hyde is a bit disappointed that Curie isn't great at giving gifts to girls, she's overjoyed to reunite with him after 1,200 years of waiting. Hyde's words suggest that Curie might be a reborn great sage in this era. Now, Curie finally has time to reflect on everything he's been through. At first, he was just a frail young man, serving as an attendant for a hero's party. Then he was cast out and embarked on a directionless journey. But fortunately, along the way, he had unforgettable experiences and met cherished friends. In the end, Curie now has a true home to return to, without fear of being dismissed. Because now, he's the head of the magic workshop. Hearing this, Curie panics, worried he isn't skilled enough for such a position. But everyone agrees it's only natural, just like the phrase Curie always says. So, the young man has no choice but to accept it without argument. And so, the story of the Supreme Crafting Master comes to a close. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos.